very good morning, everybody, from the flight deck. Once again, welcome to A Pilot's Life live on Twitch with Captain Nabs, and here we are with another flight here in the Boeing 737-800 series. You can see we got two overwing exits, so it's the Boeing 737-800, and we are going to be departing today on the next leg of our career. If you look just over the top of the airplane, you can see some mountains off in the distance, and between here and the mountains you can see a whole bunch of casinos. That's because today we are starting out in Las Vegas. There it is. We are in Las Vegas today, and we are going back to one of the Alaska Airlines hubs of Portland. So it's not too long of a flight today. It's about a 2-hour and a bit flight, and should be a lot of fun. We're going to get this airplane up in the air. We'll have a good hour and so to chat about some things, and then we'll do our arrival into Portland. I know I had promised a weekend stream coming up on this upcoming weekend. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be a no-go at this point, and I'm a little bit disappointed about it. I was really kind of hoping and looking forward to it. I know a lot of you guys can't fly with me on the weekdays, so I was really looking forward to having a weekend stream, and it looks like it's just not going to happen this weekend. Originally, my family was going to go out of town for a family event that I was not invited to, which is a little bit offensive, but I was going to try and make the most of it and spend some time with you guys online. Unfortunately, due to an illness, that event was canceled, so now my family's going to be home all weekend, which is not a terrible thing. It's Mother's Day, so we do want to celebrate and spend some time with our wives, mothers, sisters, everybody. So I think at this point, a stream on the weekend is probably not going to happen. If I can figure out a way to make some time to make it happen, I will. But I don't know that it's going to happen. So I know I had promised that. I was really kind of looking forward to it myself. I'm more than a little disappointed that that's not going to happen anymore. But sometimes that's the way things go. Like, things change unexpectedly, and yeah, that is what has happened here. I had a plan in place based on what was supposed to occur, and yeah, like I said, things changed, situation changed. Unfortunately, there was an illness, and it's not the terrible thing, but just yeah, the time I thought that I was going to have nobody around, and nobody's going to be around with me on Mother's Day is not the case anymore. So instead, I'm going to spend some time with my on Mother's Day with my wife and family. So, which is probably a better thing to do at the end of the day. Anyways, so my apologies for anybody that was looking forward to that, but we will get some stuff done here. In the meantime, we have got about 26 minutes until we're supposed to get airborne here on our flight to Portland here, or at least certainly get off the gate. Departure times usually are measured as gate times, so let's get ready to get going here. The first thing we're going to do is request some refueling.
Is on its way.
Get this refueling truck over here to take care of us.
Please don't load aircraft until the fuel truck arrives and ask to do it.
And we're going to hop in the flight deck as well. And as always, we start up with out the proper ground services. And for some reason, PMDG defaults to never having a jetway, which I find odd because the vast majority of airports, certainly in North America, have jetways.
Fuel truck is in position.
Air stairs are not uncommon, but they're certainly less common.
Aircraft until the fuel. Please use your airplane fuel system to set the desired fuel quantity.
All right. Please use your aircraft fuel system to set the desired fuel quantity. Thank you, airplane. All right. So we're going to get our sim brief panel here, fetch our current flight plan, and block fuel of 18,300 pounds. So, the annoying thing about PNG also is that it loads the airplane by default with about a half tank of fuel. I really wish it would save the fuel from one flight to the next. Land with 8,000 pounds of fuel in the tank.
Use your airplane fuel system to set the desired fuel quantity.
All right, so let's just do that for a second. And then what did I say it was? It was 18,355. So we're going to put it up to 18,600 pounds. Just a little round up there. And there we go. I don't know if that's going to load anything. Doesn't matter. All right, we should have ground power now. We do, so let's go ahead. Battery on. Ground power on. Emergency lights. IRS is aligning. Electronic Check engine controls, no flags, that's on. Passenger oxygen is normal. Alright, and let's just do this. Let's start setting up.
Roger.
Alright, we got a new voice today. Who's my FO today? Today's FO is Keith. Keith from IE. So Keith is my FO for the day. So every day I'm going to try and use a different voice, just sort of add some variety. It makes it feel like more like the real deal, where you're constantly changing FOs every time you come to work. You probably are flying with a different FO. All right, so PAX, we can get into auto. I don't have the APU yet. We're waiting for the fuel to finish, and then we'll move on to the APU. And the fuel truck came, and he's gone because he didn't think he had to load anything. So we can actually start the APU now. Let's do this. How is the temperature in the cabin? So those are the supply ducts. It's not too bad actually in the cabin right now. 70 degrees? 60 degrees actually. Actually, it's a little chilly in the cabin almost. Yeah. You could say it's almost a little chilly here. Get that APU started to get some warmth going on in here. And in the meantime, we can go ahead and start setting this baby up. Alright, so today we got the 737-800 with 26,000 pound engines. AIRAC 2304, effective date the 20th of April to the 18th of May. And usually there's a time date here thing here. There you go, 9th of May. Perfect. 6:11. That time is not correct at all. Is that the local time? Because it's 13:53 Zulu, so I don't even know what time this has got here. 13:11. Yeah, that's got to be a local time, that's why. There we go. Time date 13:11. That's better. Okay, anyway, so we check the date, position init, page 2 to get the GPS coordinates that I've loaded, and initialize the IRSs on that, and we're ready to start our program in here. Alright, and I realize, of course, as I always do, I forget to put myself up on there right away. Let me just do this. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome on board, and welcome to the show. We're going to get this underway here. Our goal is to be airborne or off the gate at 1/4 the hour. So we have this time is not correct either at all. Okay, live weather, real time. There we go. Now the time is correct. So we got till 14:15 to get off the gate. Alright. Yeah, so let's get this thing set up here. So today we are doing KLAS, Las Vegas. And what I might do is just sort of freeze myself there so it's a little bit less of an awkward head angle for me to work with. Alright, he's out for the walk around. That's fine. Today's flight number is Alaska 683, I believe. 683, and let's just again check that against our flight plan here. Alaska 683, that is the correct. All right. Alaska 683, perfect. So we got all that. Departing Las Vegas. Let's pull up some weather here on the VATSIM network. Of course, we don't have any ATC yet, but fingers crossed we might get some in Portland. That Portland tower seems to show up quite regularly. So we'll hope for that. Winds 180 at 5. I believe 19 right is closed, but we can definitely depart 19 left. So let's land to depart 19 left. And here's our routing. Joker 3 to Kino. Joker 3 to Kino. And then from there we go direct Oscar Alpha Lima. J92. Urine. Soern, and from Soern we do the Timbers 2 arrival into Portland. The plan is 28 left, so we'll plan an ILS 28 left right now. I don't know the transition. Timbers 2, and I don't, yes, there it is, Soern transition. Alright, Soern, Timbers 2, the ILS 28 left. That's all loaded in there. We can go ahead and activate and execute that and move on to perf init. So estimated ZFW today 128.4. Reserves for today's flight 5,500, so we'll round it up to 5.6. Never hurts to round up a little bit when you're planning fuel burns. And the cost index today of 12. Cruising at 36. Cruise wind 228 at 36. Standard transition altitude of 18,000 feet. We can execute that. Go to our N1 limit and let's calculate something here for Las Vegas in the 737-800. So I've got my phone here. I've got a handy little app that actually calculates. I don't know how accurate they are, but I do have my phone here. I calculate some numbers for Las Vegas. 19 left from the full-length dry runway. Winds 180 at 5. Outside air temperature of 17 degrees, and the altimeter 2987. And of course, I forget to put it into imperial all the time. So I'm going to do safe flap.
Hi, the security and safety
5.
check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Thanks.
Boarding requested.
Alright, sync those up. AC on, no anti-ice. See if we can do takeoff 2. Takeoff weight, and I always forget to look at this. Alright. Takeoff weight is estimated at 147,100. Calculate. Weight's too high for takeoff 2. Let's do a takeoff 1. Weight seems to be too high for takeoff 1. What if I up it to flap 10? Can I do a takeoff 1? What about a flap 15? Can't do a takeoff 1. Alright, back to flap 5 with just non-derate takeoff. And we do have some numbers that work. Yes, first thing in the morning, let's board everybody. Alright, so N1 limited says takeoff 1, and we should have a derate of 33 degrees. I guess probably mostly because of the altitude here, we do need a fair amount of power to get off the ground here. So no derate, but 33 degree flex temp. Flaps 5. And the C of G will load that automatically here, 25.6. So 39, 41, 47. Doesn't quite match what I've got here, but it'll work. And we're going to change these to a standard acceleration height of 1,000 feet and a thrust reduction altitude of 1,000 feet as well. So at 1,000 feet, we'll get thrust reduction and acceleration. And dry runway, no slope required. Perfect. All right, we are all set up. I'm just going to minimize you for a minute. I might need you back again for some more information here in a little bit. And in the meantime, there should be boarding going on. Looks like there is. I do see a baggage train there, loading some stuff in. Excellent. And also at the back as well. These guys are hard at work at the front and the back, doing their jobs. I might take myself away because this might be a good again, a good title card here, just to sort of see these guys doing their thing, throwing bags. It's a simple thing, but it's charming. It adds quite a little bit of just realism to the whole operation. You feel like something's being loaded in there, and the airplane's actually going to have some inertia when you get going here because there's stuff actually in the airplane. Alright, so he's still out doing the walk around. We're going to go ahead and go through the overhead flow, make sure everything is where it should be.
Your crew has boarded.
Check the stall
Passengers
test as well at this
boarding
point. Damper on, those are all normal. Alright, and I never did put the heat on. It's already getting warm with all the people in there. But now we're going to get some heat coming through the ducts as well. Alright, battery voltage is good. GPU ground power is good. And actually we can probably just take the ground power away at this point. Put ourselves on the APU buses. Since the APU is running and burning fuel, we might as well use it. Alright, advance are normal. Aircraft is fueled. That's not the switch I meant to touch. That's it. Seatbelts on. Ignition. Window heats. Oh, I thought I turned all the window heats on. I thought I did. There we go. Probe heats on. De-ice is off. Electric hydraulics are off. We got lots of doors open. That's fine. Test that up. Alright, cabin altitude looks good. And now we should be getting some cooler air flowing through the ducts. This will get us some cooler cabin temperatures here momentarily.
I'm back. No issues on the walk around.
Roger that. Alright, what did I say? 36, I believe. I believe Portland's at like about 100 feet. Unable 270 knots at Portal, that's fine. What did I say for an altitude here? 36,000 I did, yes, good. Okay, so 36,000 is our cruise altitude today. Alright, lights, everything's off, the APU's up and running, the ignition's changed, and the only light we've got on is the wheel well light we don't need, but we do need the position lights on. Good, perfect, that's exactly what we need to have. Alright, altimeter, what did I say? 2987, I believe, here on the VATSIM network. And Tama GT, good morning. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for flying with me the other night as well. I haven't gotten too many ATC streams in lately. I was hoping to get one in this week. I'm not sure when I'm going to work it out, really. It's tough to do evenings. My evening is family time. I spend time with my family in the evenings, and I know it's like everyone's peak time to do their hobbies and everything, but to me it's always family time. So I find it very tough to kind of find times that kind of conform to everybody else's schedules. 147. I would like to try and do an ATC stream this week, and maybe tomorrow. I don't know if I can find the time. Maybe tomorrow morning. I might be able to find some time for one. All right. Pretty sure it's going to be an LNAV departure here, so we'll go ahead and arm the LNAV and the VNAV. Altitude, we'll have to check it against the SID momentarily here. So let's just finish the rest of our flow, and then we'll start setting up the guidance panel a little bit more accurately here. Test the lights.
Hi,
Okay.
here's the fuel slip.
Thanks.
Welcome. Have a nice flight.
Alright, so engine oil is looking okay. We got 75 and 79. Hydraulic fluids are 100% each. That's good. Alright, brightness looks okay. Gears down, tube dosers are all stowed. Steep brake lever stowed. Flaps of 0. And brakes, I guess we should get those on. Stab is normal. Quick fire test here. Alright, no ATC online yet. 22.8 it is for Unicom. No surprise there, really, this early in the morning out on the west coast. It's still 7 in the morning there. Alright, and that's all good. I will test the trims. It's awkward to do this. I could test the rudder trim pretty easily because you can see the rudder trim right there, but it's tough to test the aileron trim because the aileron trim indication is over here. So normally you'd have your finger on the switch and be looking here, but it's really hard to do. Some things are really hard to do in the sim. They're really hard to simulate in the sim properly. So, and I took myself away and forgot about it again. Of course. Empty nesters, yeah. Sad, and yet something part of me is looking forward to a little bit. Not a whole lot. I'm really, empty nesting I don't think will go well with me as much as I have hobbies that I enjoy. I enjoy spending time with my kids. The idea of not having my kids around to spend time with, that hurts a little bit. That honestly hurts a little bit. We just had a birthday this year. The kids are growing up, but I don't want them to. I don't want them out of my house. I want them around. I like having them around. Anyways. We got 9 minutes to our departure time. Boarding seems to be going well, so let's just see if we can get this all fired off here. Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested 100%.
Tested 100%. Navigation transfer and display switches. Normal auto. Windows heat on. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Flight instruments.
Heading 349. Altimeter 2987.
Heading 349. Altimeter 2987. Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cutoff.
Pre-flight checklist completed.
Alright, and I set the flight number there. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Checked.
Are you ready for the departure brief?
Go ahead.
Alright. Pull up my Navigraph charts here. Give it a second to think about it. I do love this scenery. This FlyTampa scenery is just great, and you can even get some rust on the bridge. You've got cars going by, just a few cars, but there's enough to give you a hint of kind of motion in the distance, which is really nice. And then there's some great scenery as well. I can't see it from here, but the downtown Vegas scenery is also really great. The whole thing is just really comes together nicely. Okay, today we are in Las Vegas at Reed International. We are at gate, what did I say, Echo 15, I think was what I said last time. There we go. So we're going to taxi to departure runway 19 left. It's a bit of a long taxi. It'll give us a chance to kind of look at some of the nice Las Vegas scenery. So I don't know the exact route we would get, but I'm going to guess it's something like Charlie Golf Delta up to 19 left. We'll do a departure from the threshold of 19 left. And once we get airborne today, we're doing the Joker 3 RNAV departure, 10-3 Bravo, 20th of October. So 19 left and right. Climb on heading. Let's just check this out and verify it here. And we can even put up plan mode here as well to help with that. Climb on heading 194 to 2682, then DEREW, Deru, at or below 7,000. 7,000 below, then on track 188 to Caring, then on track 218 to Comic, then on track 224 to Magneto, Caring, Comic, Magneto, tracks 188, 218, 224, that looks good. Then on track 260 to cross Kruger, at or below 11,000. At or below 11,000, yep. Then on track 260 to Joker, track 260 to Joker. And then from there, we follow the rest of our route here. Grimes, Deadpool, Biker, KG, or Cage, and Kino. And the top altitude for this is 190. So let's go ahead and set 190 on here. Let's just do it the easy way. Press and hold. And radar required for non-GPS aircraft, turbojets only. RNM 1 DPR GPS required. All right, perfect. So that's all in there. The terrain around Vegas, we've got 12,900 as the MSA, especially, and those due to this terrain due straight to the west, which is why we've got to follow this route off to the south via Magneto to get past this mountain here before we turn back northbound towards Portland. Yeah. Weather is, again, it's a beautiful day here in Vegas. It's sunny. It's going to be probably hot. I don't see too many weather-related issues, operational issues. Again, let's pull up the sim brief panel and just have a quick look at our NOTAMS here. 5 minutes to go. We're doing okay here. I think we'll be okay. All right, so quick look at Las Vegas here. Of course, lots of NOTAMs. Hotel 3, Mike, Echo, Bravo. None of these are taxiways I'm planning on using. Yankee, Juliet, Echo, Echo between 19 right and Echo and Eastern not bad. I don't think that was something we needed. No, Echo's that one. Okay, that's fine. All right, Juliet, Foxtrot. I don't see anything here that is really going to affect us here. Runway 1 left, 19 right closed. That's fine. And Sid, Karen 6, no. It's 3, I-1's 3. Joker, MRA, 14,000 feet, and radar MRA 10,000 feet. Alright, so change departure route description to read. Takeoff 19 left, climb on heading 194, thence That's for radar vectors. Okay, so hold on, let's pull that chart up and see what it says again here. Alright. So it sounds like they're just doing radar vectoring. Sounds like they've canceled most of the initial fixes and they're just doing radar vectoring. We're going to follow this anyways because we don't have any ATC online yet to help us out, so we're just going to follow the LNAV route. But it sounds like they've changed to a radar vector departure, at least temporarily here on the Joker. So we're just going to stick with the LNAV for now. So nothing really affects us. I don't have any MELs on the aircraft. I meant to ask that, and I will ask that in my Discord next time, if anyone wants to suggest an MEL to start off with, just to make life interesting, to make things a little bit more different. I'm all ears. We can have MEL all sorts of things in the 737, the APU generators, all sorts of stuff. But looks like we're just about ready to go here. I think we're just about done boarding. So what we'll do is, boarding's completed, we'll prepare for pushback and departure. And any second now, FS2 crew should kick in. There it is, they're taking away the jet bridge even though the door is open, which is not right because they should close that door first and then take the jet bridge away.
Hey guys, all packs are on board. Are we clear to close?
Thanks, it'll be a long taxi.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, so she's going to close the door now. Okay, the door is closed. Alright, and let's just check our final numbers here as well. So let's go to FS Actions payload. And our actual ZFW is 135.2, a lot heavier than planned. Hopefully this doesn't impact our fuel burn too much. 153,900, so now I've got to adjust my takeoff numbers to match that. And let's just, alright, unable 270 knots at portal, that's fine. So let's see if we've got valid speeds here. We do have valid speeds, which means that the aircraft does believe we can do this performance. So 142, 145, 150 now. Before start checklist.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door, closed and locked. MCP.
Speed 150.
Doors are clearly marked with exit signs and instructions for door operation. Each door is equipped with an escape slide. Locate the exit
Heading 194. Altitude 19,000.
Takeoff speeds.
V1 142, VR 145, V2 150.
CDU pre-flight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Check. 3 and 0.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Are you sure about that? Anti-collision light on. Before start checklist completed.
Any questions?
No questions?
There. Now the briefing is complete. Alright. And are you ready for pushback? Ramp for the flight deck. Are you ready for pushback? I think they're ready. Oh. I will need to take away the ground services though. See the GPU still parked there, so get rid of the ground services.
Release parking brake.
Alright. And before I do that, I'm just going to really check and first of all make sure that everything is the way it should be. My overlay is up there, and more importantly, A Pilot's Life Chapter 2, we do have Flight Simulator connected stage pre-flight, so it is going to start tracking. Alright. And we are right on time. The brakes are off, ready for pushback, delay and start till advised.
All engines clear. Start at will.
Like, it just amazes me the level of detail that FlyTampa has put into this Las Vegas scenery. It really does. Every time I look around, I notice some new detail. The glass on this parking garage here. All the lighting, it's just phenomenal. Start sequence is 2, then 1.
Check.
Start engine 2.
Starting engine 2.
Can I get a radio check for Southwest 1725?
Southwest 1725, Alaska 683 reads you 5.
Thank you.
Oil pressure.
We got fuel flow, we got oil pressure, we got light off. Wait for 56%. There it goes.
Starter cutout.
Now, I don't like this pushback here. Now, if I was a ground crew, I would think
Number
that they
2,
would push
stable.
your tail directly east along this line, because the last thing you want to do is have your jet blast aimed at any particular gate for any length of time. If they can find a way to orient you, that you're not going to do that. Start engine 1.
Roger. Starting engine 1.
All right, we'll set the park and brake.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Yeah, I mean, GSX
Oil
does the best they
pressure.
can. They look at all the kind of variables, how things are kind of put together. All in all, like I criticize, I nitpick GSX, but when you think about the variability in the real-world environment, here's 25%. GSX does a fantastic job of taking what is a completely random environment and organizing it, putting vehicles where they need to be, pushing you back into a logical location. You can select a pushback location. If I'd known that it was going to push back like this, I might have selected a manual pushback location. But their automatically offered pushback locations are generally pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're generally pretty good, and it certainly takes very little thought and effort on your part, and it works quite well. So I'm going to put that to TARA because we are taxiing on the ground. So I nitpick a lot because I see things where a human being...
Starter cutout.
Tow truck
Roger.
disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
Where a human being would look at the situation and say,
Number
yeah, there's
one,
a risk
stable.
here.
Clear. Right is cleared.
But like I said, overall, it does a very good job. Now, where's my ground crew with my pin? There she goes. All right. Flaps 5. Flight control check.
Ready.
Full left. Full right. Center. Full up. Full down. Center. Full left. Full right. Center. Flight control check complete. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist. Generators. On. Probe heat. On. Anti-ice. Off. Isolation valve. Auto. Engine start switches. Continuous. Recall.
Checked.
Checked. Auto brake. RTO. Engine start levers.
Idle D10.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Ground equipment.
Clear.
Clear. Before taxi checklist completed.
Clear on the left.
Clear right.
And this here's the reason especially why you wouldn't want your tail aimed at another gate if you can avoid it. And there's a perfectly good lane there.
Checked.
You would aim down that lane, and the whole reason is because of the amount of thrust you generally need to get moving. Not just the idle thrust and the nuisance that causes, but the thrust you need to get moving when you first start taxiing. Stop turning the transponder off. Transponder on at all times. I got to make that suggestion to GSX, or not GSX, to FS2 crew. They need to get the transponder on all the time. Anyways. Alright, we've got a little bit of a long taxi out here. Let's make a radio call. Las Vegas traffic. Alaska 683 is just pushed back from Concourse E. We're taxiing for departure runway 19er left. I forget the routing. I know it in my head. I forget the exact taxiways that we're going to use. So. Palm trees everywhere. Lots of billboards around this airport, which is just great. Just adds to the realism, I think, here. Seeing all these billboards around. Then you see all these mountains in the distance. It's a really nice kind of collection of scenery here. It's a beautiful little locale. It's not really my thing. Big gambling is not my thing. Vegas would not be my place. How's the performance of the Las Vegas scenery? It's not bad. It definitely it has an impact. I would be lying if I said it didn't have an impact, but I would say that like in the last couple of updates to the Microsoft Flight Simulator, I've noticed performance improvements. They've definitely tweaked performance. So yes, it has an impact. Yes, it's quite a complex scenery. Like you can see just looking around how complex the scenery is. Tons of lights. Lots of ground clutter and details, which is great. As you can see, cars driving down these roadways here, which is also great. It looks really good. Kind of gives you the impression that you're not alone in this world. Trees and everything. And not only is there, of course, the airport scenery, but because the strip is just like a mile from the airport, the strip is done in quite a high level of detail. When we get around towards the threshold of 19 left, you're going to see that. Part of the reason why I wanted to taxi that way. But it's not terrible on performance. I think it used to be worse, and I think Microsoft has just found better ways to tweak the performance. One thing I noticed last night, I was taxiing around Toronto last night, and I've noticed that they've taken away the taxi lights more than about 400 feet from the aircraft. So like you're looking down a nice long straight taxiway, and it seems to the taxiway seems to vanish after a couple hundred feet. It really looks kind of odd at first. And then there's this vehicle that's driving around with no people in it. It really looks kind of odd at first, but I think they're doing that again to save performance. So taxi lights are not something you usually see a long way away.
Okay, thanks. Captain, the cabin is secure.
And they kind of see it here, like they end right about there. On this taxiway here, they end right about there. And it's a little bit more noticeable at night because you'll see the other lights behind it. You'll see like runway lights behind it. You'll see like structures and things like that, but you'll just see the taxi lights will kind of end at a certain point. It's very dark on the ground beyond that point, so it's kind of a little bit noticeable. But again, the amount of information that is out here is just phenomenal. How many polygons are being drawn simultaneously here? You're talking millions, literally millions of polygons are being evaluated and drawn on the screen here at one particular time. So things that they need to do to kind of tweak performance, I don't complain too much about, because there's a lot of performance. There's a lot of potential for performance issues in a sim that's this complex. And even when I look in this direction, over downtown Las Vegas, I'm still sporting 30 frames, which is not bad for me. I'm running a GTX 1060. So for me to see 30 frames constantly on the taxi out like this, I'd say it's pretty impressive. It's come a long way over the years. Exactly. It used to be, pardon me, this number of polygons, you'd never be able to sustain any kind of a reasonable frame rate. And even, like I said, like, the thing I really like about Flight Simulator, I'm just going to deviate off the center line to get around this tug because there's just too many airport vehicles on the taxiways. The thing I like about Microsoft Flight Simulator is that they do an excellent job of tweaking the performance to match your system. The sim is constantly kind of evaluating what your system is capable of, and it really kind of adjusts itself to maintain reasonable performance. It balances the GPU and the CPU loading based on the actual CPU and GPU in your system. It doesn't waste a whole lot of resources. They spent a long time, I think, tweaking that aspect of the simulator. Keeping the what am I trying to say here? Keeping the balance between the CPU and GPU, so neither is really being wasted. They've done an excellent job of that. So I think this is probably one of the most worthwhile sceneries. This FlyTampa Las Vegas, the airport is fantastically detailed. You've got all this detail of the downtown strip here. You can see as we're coming around towards 19 left now, you're starting to see clearly all the stuff that's here. They even have like the giant vertical light that comes out of the top of the pyramid there at night. It looks good from this distance. It looks a little bit blotchy and textury from this distance, but it looks pretty good. You get a general feel of this busy downtown over there. And when you get close to the buildings, the detail level does pick up. That's the other nice thing too. So It's quite something, and other developers have made that comment. I think it was who made that comment. I think it was TFDI. They were talking about their MDL and how many polygons are in. Maybe it was somebody else, but and they said that Microsoft Flight Simulator just eats polygons. Like like I said, like in this flight deck alone, there's probably like over 1 million polygons. When you look at all these round knobs and how many polygons it takes to make a round knob, there's probably 1 million polygons just in this flight deck alone. And yet here we are still fairly solidly maintaining 30 frames per second. I'm pretty impressed. I have had performance issues with Las Vegas in the past. When it first came out, the sim was still kind of a little bit less tweaked than it is now. I did find that Las Vegas was tough on it. This was one of the first sceneries I think that released. I think this was FlyTampa's first scenery in MSFS, and it was originally pretty rough on the frame rates. It killed your computer pretty effectively. But it's definitely improved. I remember flying in here in the 737 and it was just a slideshow. Just like, here's 5 frames per second if you're lucky. Alright, so we're getting around a bunch of Legion aircraft. We're going to bear right here on, I believe this is Delta that takes us all the way to the end. Stray out on the runway there. We'll just bear right here. All the way down to the threshold of 19 left. Yes. It does look very good. I wish FlyTampa would release CYUL for MSFS. I liked it a lot in P3D. Sorely missed it in MSFS. I haven't installed the freeware copies of CYUL as reports of performance issues. I would say, for now, as a stopgap, install that freeware. It's not great, and the guy basically stopped development on it like 2 years ago. But it is... I was quite impressed at the time with how much effort he actually put into making custom hangars, custom buildings. It's not a FlyTampa level scenery, but for freeware scenery, it's much better than default. I would go and download that freeware CYUL scenery off FlightsIn.to. I don't find it has any performance issues. I find it's fine for performance. It's the only issue I have with that scenery is that the gates are not labeled correctly. The guy made really nice looking scenery, did good buildings and everything, but didn't adjust the stand numbers from, I think, the default in MSFS. So all the stand numbers are completely wrong. So if you're using GSX, you're completely out of luck if you use CYUL. But I think it's a great scenery. Give it a try. Download it. Try it. I mean, maybe, you know, if your computer's even worse than mine, then maybe it won't work quite as well. But I find it works quite well on mine. There are quite a few custom buildings, but it's not. It's definitely nowhere near the level of detail that you get out of FlyTampa. There's not like cars in the parking lot and stuff like that to any great degree, so you won't get a huge performance penalty. I think it's worth having for now. And yes, I can't wait. For CYUL. That's like the one major airport in Canada that's really still missing. That in Calgary, and FSIM Studios said they're on the verge of releasing Calgary. I don't think it's out yet, but I think they're this month. I think it's going to come out, which will leave Montreal as like the last major airport in Canada that has no scenery whatsoever, I would say. And it's quite a busy airport, so it's surprising that Montreal is not represented by anybody.
Las Vegas traffic.
Before takeoff
Southwest,
checklist.
1725.
Before takeoff
pushing back
checklist.
from
Flaps.
Charlie 3.
Flaps 5, green light.
Stabilizer trip.
Los Angeles traffic. Las Vegas traffic, sorry.
.8 units. 4.8 units.
Before takeoff checklist completed.
Alright, there we go. And I honestly didn't hear what he was saying there. I was doing my checklist. I wouldn't say he was right apart. Los Angeles traffic. Alaska 683 is lining up runway 19 left for departure. Runway entry procedure.
Okay. Cabin crew, take your seats. Clear on the approach.
You can see, like, it's really quite good scenery as you get closer here. It's you
Checked.
definitely feel like you're in Las Vegas. You feel like these are
Ready
real
to go.
buildings there. They're unique, they're distinctive, and it's very busy. And yet the frame rate is still good. I'm still, okay, now I'm down to 27, 28 frames. But it's still holding very close to 30 frames here. It's not bad. Alright, here we go. Here's a question. Has my overlay is doing something. I see the headings turning there. Ground speed steady at 4 knots. Alright, are we ready? Here we go. Las Vegas traffic, Alaska 683, rolling, runway 19er left. Alright, N1, Toga.
Checked. Thrust set 80 knots.
Checked.
V1, rotate. Positive rate.
Gear up.
Gear up.
LNAV.
Checked. .400 feet.
VNAV speed.
Checked.
N1.
Checked.
Las Vegas
Flaps
traffic,
one.
Reliving 463.
Speed checked.
Boosted start, Alpha 15.
Flaps up.
Runway 19er right. Las Vegas traffic.
Flaps 1 set. Speed checked. Flaps up set.
Select Command A.
Autopilot on. Autopilot on.
I don't know why he calls it out twice now. After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds. On. Packs. Auto. Landing gear. Up and off. Flaps. Up. No lights. After takeoff checklist complete. Happy to release the cabin crew?
Go for it.
Okay.
Definitely got to climb to make it over some of these mountains here. But now we got it all cleaned up and we're doing pretty good here. Tracked housing at the end of Las Vegas here. Just endless grids of tracked housing. And there's the center fuel tank pumps. They're empty already. That will just turn off both the left and right center tank pumps. And these mountains are the reason why we have to go south to get over. Probably should have had terrain up for this departure, actually. I did not do a very good risk assessment and say, hey, let's get terrain up there. So we still got some high terrain up ahead here, up to about 11,900 is on the screen. We get to about 12,000, 13,000, I'll start to feel a little bit more relaxed. On the present trajectory, though, as we go over these top of these hills, though, I think we're going to be okay. Yeah, it's beautiful weather for departure today. It's nice. I like it. Now we can see what's going on. Got the 10,000 really quickly here. There's the highway off to Los Angeles there through the desert.
Las Vegas traffic, Southwest 1725, taxiing to runway
10,000.
26 left, using taxiway Bravo 4, Bravo.
Happy to release the cabin?
Go for it.
Okay.
What a nice day in Las Vegas here. And let's do this really nicely here. more screenshots here that might be able to take. I might even take a screenshot right here this way. There's a level off at 11,000. I'm constantly looking for good screenshots here. Nope. There we go. So we leveled off at 11,000 because we got to be Kruger at or below 11,000. In the meantime, we can do this. Set flight level 360.
Flight level 360 set.
And now we're ready for our climb to cruise once we pass this altitude restriction at Kruger. I see there is a CYUL enhancement package in place in that correct gates, taxiway signs, etc. Last update. Now, is that compatible with the other Montreal scenery from I forget what the guy's name is. I think he's from Quebec though, judging by his handle. Because that's the one thing that annoys me about Montreal is incorrect gates, and that annoys me so much about so many airports. Is that the information is out there. It does take a lot of information. Yes, the other CYUL. Okay, so I didn't even know that existed, a CYUL enhancement package. Okay, I'm gonna have to go and grab that when this is done and install that, because that's probably the biggest annoyance I have with that scenery is just the fact that it uses the default gates, which are all incorrectly numbered, which makes it impossible to use GSX. The scenery's not bad. It's not FlyTampa, but it's really not bad. This guy put quite a bit of effort into it, and then he just sort of faded away. He spent like 6 months or a year working on it, and then that was like two and a half years ago, and hasn't really done anything to it since. I mean, freeware scenery, like you guys under no obligation to do anything. I wish he would, because honestly, he was off to a great start. Could do a few more things, but there's the VNAV speed. It's the risk with freeware. Well, exactly, and I don't want to be a d-bag and say, well, I deserve this because I do, because I'm important, and you should do this for everybody. I don't want to be that guy, I want to be grateful. I want to say thank you for the effort you did put in. It's awesome the amount of effort you've already put in. It looks really good already. It could look better. There are a few things here and there that I think were not finished to the level that he had originally intended, but just sort of got the first version out there, first couple of versions out there, and then other stuff got in the way, life got in the way. So again, I don't want to be ungrateful. I just would love to see FlyTampa come up with their scenery, because their scenery was great. I actually sent them a whole bunch of suggestions and pictures for their scenery. I happened to be in Montreal, and I emailed them the one day and like, hey, do you need any pictures or anything? I know you guys are working on the P3D version of Montreal, and they told me a few of the things they needed, so I sent them like dozens of pictures, just give them some research material from the airport. So I know they're always aspiring to be highly realistic, highly detailed models. They do succeed. Like that in Las Vegas, it just looks great. I've never actually been to Las Vegas, but it captures. It certainly has. It feels like a real place. I don't know it for accuracy, but in terms of immersion, the amount of detail, ground clutter, vehicles moving around, billboards with different ads on them, and just the textures, the materials, the way the whole thing's put together, it feels very much like a real place. I don't know if it's accurate, but it definitely, it doesn't feel like a contrived computer version of a place. Alright, just come up to Joker here. As we pass Joker, I'm going to do a quick position check. So we're just coming up to 18,000. We're just coming up to transition here, out across Death Valley in the deserts of western Nevada. Try not to look and see any UFOs flying around over there, hopefully. Now more than ever, people are convinced they're seeing UFOs. I don't think people are seeing UFOs. I think Starlink is insane. I've noticed this on a couple of different times flying back in the middle of the night from the West Coast, doing a transcontinental red-eye, and you get it about the same time of day, roughly the same area and the same time of day every year. So there's transitions at standard, or not every year, but every flight, where you get, there's Joker. Let me just do a quick little position check here at Joker, and where's my flight plan? There it is. Alright, there it is. So over Joker 1441. 1441, I can see it in the corner there, and the fuel on board. I just can't quite see it there. It's 15.8 Beam Joker. So hopefully that's pretty close to our plan. 15.8. Oops, I like blue just because it's easier to see the colors in it. So we're up a little bit on the fuel. We're up 400 pounds on the fuel. And Beam Joker 1441. Let's just do the rest of this really quickly here. Math test 1446, 1448. 51. $15.08. The Seattle FIR 31. 50. Then we're on the arrival. That's the start of the arrival there. 4, and this just allow us to do time checks periodically throughout the flight to make sure that we are still operating on schedule, we're not falling behind, and if we are, we can start to investigate if there's an important, significant reason why we're falling behind. Fuel's not tight today, but I didn't plan on a whole lot of extra fuel because the weather is supposed to be good. It's supposed to be a really nice day, especially here at my house. It's supposed to be a beautiful day, beautiful week. 1624. So 1624, and what was our scheduled arrival time here? So scheduled 1640. So it looks like we're going to be probably on time. Let's just check this out here. 1622, we don't have to be at the gates at 1640. So it looks like we are probably going to have an early arrival into Portland based on this. And we're not even doing a heavy cost index. We're only doing cost index 12, and we're still going to be there ahead of schedule. That's fine. It doesn't hurt to show up early a little bit sometimes. There are risks of showing up too early in the airline industry. If you do show up too early, there's a good chance that your gate may not be available. The previous flight may still be at the gate. They also do a lot of the scheduling, especially at major airports where they have a lot of flights coming and going, and they have, at hubs, they have a lot of personnel shared between various gates. There may not be a ground crew ready for you when you get there, so you don't want to show up too early. There is such a thing as too early in the airline. In the airlines, and yeah, if you show up too early, there's a good chance that the destination may not be ready for you for one reason or another, whether it be no gate available, no ramp crew available, no passenger, no customer service agents available, whatever. All these different pieces have to fall into place, so you don't want to show up too early. Most airlines will have a limitation. There'll be various limitations, but most of the airlines I've worked for have had a early departure limitation. So if you're ready, the plane is there early, you get boarded up, everything goes perfectly like clockwork according to plan, no slip-ups in the boarding process, and you're ready to go early. If you're ready to go early, there's usually a limit to how early you're allowed to depart. And most airlines, it's on the order of 5 to 10 minutes. They will not allow you to, it'll be written usually right into the operations manual, or it'd be a company policy that you cannot leave more than 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early. And the reason being, again, these kind of things, potential equipment and resource issues if you show up too early. Everything is designed around showing up at a certain time, and the resources are allocated. Airline schedules may seem random, but a lot of work goes into creating them and making sure that there is enough resources if everybody shows up at the scheduled time. If you show up too early, the resources may not be ready for you yet because they may still be dealing with the previous flight. That being said, there's usually escapes as well. So the airlines I've all worked for said dispatch can approve an earlier departure than the limit. That 5 or 10 minute limit is the uncoordinated early departure limit. So you can leave up to 5 to 10 minutes early without anybody else's approval. If you want to leave even earlier than that, usually you need dispatch approval, and basically the dispatch is going to be more aware of the whole overall picture and what kind of situations they might have with constraints. And if they're not aware, they can call ahead and find out information for you. So oftentimes we'll just ACARS the dispatcher and say, hey, are we able to leave 15 minutes early? And they'll look into it and find out whether or not it's operationally suitable for us to leave early. If there's no capacity constraints, if we're the only flight going to this destination airport, so the crew's there waiting for us already, sure, why not? But if you're going to a major hub where everything is tightly scheduled, the gates are all very carefully scheduled, the personnel are all carefully scheduled, they usually won't approve it unless you've got an overriding reason. Now, if there's like a strong headwind and the flight's going to be a lot longer than normal for some reason, yeah, they might say it. If you're trying to beat the weather, sure, why not? But, leaving early doesn't necessarily save the airline money, because if you get to your destination and that gate's not ready, you're now going to sit on a taxiway burning fuel, waiting for that ramp crew. Wasn't it better to sit at the gate with the engines off an extra 5 minutes and leave on time than to show up 10 minutes early and be burning all that fuel at the other end? So the dispatcher's got the big picture. They can look at these things. They can even call the station and say, hey, is an early arrival okay? And there may be issues. It's like, no, we only have one gate. This flight is actually behind schedule, so they're not going to leave until pretty much the time they arrive. So don't have them show up early. Yeah, so much stuff is so tightly planned and scheduled in the airlines that there's not a lot of give for that sort of thing, for showing up early. Just like there's no give for showing up late. This is the trouble when we have air flights that show up late. It creates cascading delays. Now the ramp crew that's handling this late flight is not ready for their next flight. The aircraft's not ready for its next flight. The crew might time out. The scheduling can be so tight in these airlines, and it's funny. I was just reading the FAA and Transport Canada are both taking a solid look at improving the passenger rights legislation that exists in both countries because of the debacle that happened in the last 12 months. Canada last summer was just a disaster in terms of on-time performance in the airlines, and even, never mind on-time performance, just performance in general, just getting people to their destination was a total debacle. The industry did not scale up fast enough after COVID. Some aspects scaled up pretty quickly, other aspects did not. A lot of the infrastructure at the airports was not prepared for the ramp up in flying. The airlines they knew what they wanted to do, and they kind of ramped up pretty quickly, and they were able to. But even the airlines had issues. They couldn't hire enough people to do the jobs. They couldn't hire enough ramp personnel. They couldn't hire enough customer service personnel to handle the number of customers that came there. And again, it turns into a huge snowball once you start to get a couple flights delayed, and you get a couple of ramp crews that are overworked, or a couple of flights that are delayed, and now customer service agents are dealing with just these couple of passengers. All of a sudden, their workload goes up big time, but there's not more people. So the other more routine requests are falling behind in the queue because there's so many people trying to get rebooked onto their flights because of cancellations, because of misconnections and that sort of thing. So the airlines were not ramped up in terms of personnel last summer enough. If everything had gone according to plan, it would have worked out. But as soon as some sideways stuff happened, as soon as some sideways stuff happened last summer, the customer service departments and the ramp departments were just maybe had an adequate number of personnel for the perfect days. The second things went sideways, stuff really came off the rails. They could not keep up with the workload. And Southwest over the holidays had over December of last year had the same issue. They had their issues stem from different places, but because the airline melted down so much and was completely falling apart, there was not enough processes in place to pick up the pieces. All airlines assume some stuff's not going to happen, that we're going to have 10, 20, 30% of our flights might fall behind schedule. Or even, on a bad day with bad weather covering up one of our hubs, we might have to cancel 10 or 15% of our flights, and that's an assumption. And we work around that. But when you get to the point where you're now canceling 60, 70, 80% of the flights in your airline, which is what happened to Southwest last December, there's no way to pick up the pieces from that. The airline just completely melted down. And even at the start of each day, where in theory you can kind of have a little bit of a reset, there was just not enough resources to pick up the pieces. The crew schedulers did not know where the people were. There wasn't enough people to call up everybody and tell them, because airline scheduling is a huge endeavor from a crew perspective. There's so much effort that goes into putting together monthly schedules for air crew. It's all computerized, but it can take sometimes a day for the computer to run through all the bids and crunch all the numbers and work out all the calculations of what of putting together these schedules. And that's a pretty advanced computer. It can take people spend a week or so bidding for their schedule, and then the computer takes all the input and spends a day or two crunching the numbers. Then the crew schedulers look at it, validate it all, make sure that there are no mistakes in it, and then they go and publish it. but that's all published. That's all done digitally now. Like it's all sent out by pilots, through digital. What am I trying to say here? Through digital, portals. Like it's not like somebody's calling up everybody and saying this is your schedule. So the distribution of information is not equipped to tell everybody when the schedule completely fell apart and everybody was in the wrong place and nobody was able to fly the flights that they were scheduled to. Nobody knew which flights they should fly, and there's not enough crew schedulers to call an entire airline's worth of people, 5,000-10,000 pilots and 20,000-30,000 flight attendants, and give them all this information individually. Like, if each phone call takes 3 minutes, that's still, you're going to need hundreds of people making hundreds of phone calls a day. They just could not pick up the pieces fast enough and reset everything, because as fast as stuff, they try to get the information out there, and by the time the information got out there, crew schedulers try and call a certain set of pilots. By the time they got to the airport, they'd find out that the airplane's not there yet, it's not where it's supposed to be, and then by the time the airplane arrived, then the crew's time out. So, because the second you call into the airport, the time on their duty day starts ticking. So, they're trying to put together plans, and the plans are falling apart faster than they can tell everybody what the plan is. So I felt bad for Southwest. I don't think too many airlines could have probably survived. They had some particularly unique circumstances that affected them, but having that much of an operational meltdown, they couldn't even send crews to other places because most of the flights were canceled. So they couldn't even send a crew to a place where they could be useful. Like a lot of time, like you look around an airline flight, and in the back, and almost every airline flight's got a crew member on it, deadheading somewhere to do some other flight. And especially when things go sideways, when you have bad weather days or some kind of cancellation, some sort of chain of cancellations, suddenly you get a lot of people who are in the wrong place, who start flying in the back of the airplanes, flying around to other places. So certainly you look after bad weather days in the back of these airplanes, and you see a lot of crews flying around to other places trying to pick up the pieces and put it back together. If you don't have enough flights flying to get the people to where they need to be, then you have a real big problem in your airline. You can't even get the pilots to the airplanes they need to fly to fix the problem, to get it back up and running. So Southwest just reached that point where the whole thing kind of collapsed, like a giant house of cards, like a Jenga game where there's just one too many pieces have been taken away and the whole thing just collapsed, and there's no way to rebuild it easily. Anyways, and so Thomas said, it looks like we got another summer of airline-related issues coming our way. I would say yes. I don't think it's going to be as bad as last summer. I think a lot of lessons were learned from last summer. A lot of the airport infrastructure was not up to the job last summer. There was not enough people hired back. So the airports, the airlines, everybody's been on a hiring binge for the last year, trying to make sure that they have enough people in place to do the jobs that need to get done. That being said, I don't think it's going to be a great summer, and there's other issues. This summer, labor is going to be a huge issue. We're scheduled to fly back to the UK next week with WestJet, but looking at canceling due to the upcoming, and that's exactly what I was going to say, due to the upcoming potential strike. And WestJet's not the only one. Tons of airlines are looking at labor issues this year. So, the last 3 years, a lot of people, a lot of employees at airlines have taken a lot of compromises to keep the airlines functional. People were laid off for years. People were pushed back into other positions. They're downgraded, pushed into positions they did not necessarily want, but they had to take it because that's all. That's all that was available. So, and the airlines were obviously hemorrhaging money. Just absolutely gushing money in every which way, trying to keep their operations running so that when travel came back, they were ready. And a lot of the employees looked at it and said, "Yeah, I agree. I will take a pay cut to help keep this company viable for the short term, because obviously we are in an extreme situation." Now the tables have turned around. The airlines are back to taking in vast amounts of revenue. Everybody's doing a lot of work, working very hard, and people are looking back for their piece of the pie again. So this is going to be a summer of potential labor strife. WestJet is just the tip of the iceberg. They're the first ones, but they will not be the last ones. WestJet is in a strike mandate as of not this weekend, next weekend. WestJet pilots are in a position to go on a legal strike. I don't think they will right off the bat, but I think you will see a lot of picketing, and I think you will see a lot of work to rule where there's no overtime, and flights are going to get canceled because the airlines depend on people coming in for overtime. There's never enough reserves, especially on busier periods of time, to cover all the flights. So you're going to look at certainly a percentage of flights at WestJet are going to start getting canceled when they start doing work to rule. WestJet's just the first ones. Then after WestJet, the American Pilots Association, which is American Airlines, I believe they have just recently voted for a strike mandate as well. I believe the Southwest pilots are coming up to a potential vote for a strike mandate. They're in renegotiations, and if it doesn't go well, they'll vote for a strike mandate as well. There's lots of pilots groups that are looking around and saying, well, our brethren at other airlines have been offered ridiculous salary increases. Delta kind of set the bar really high. They offered their pilots a very generous wage increase, and all the other airlines are looking around saying, well, why are we not getting the same thing? So it's there's a lot of potential for labor strife, and if the airlines want to play hardball with the labor unions, then you're going to see that. Air Canada is going to be up sometime in the next year as well. So whether or not they can go on strike, I think the last time Air Canada went on strike was about 20-something years ago. They went on strike for 10 days, and apparently back then it cost the airline almost $1 billion in lost revenue over that 10-day period. And that was 20 years ago. The size of the airline has grown a lot since then. Even a short strike at Air Canada would have a major impact on the company's bottom line, would have a major impact on the national economy, because at the end of the day, Air Canada, even though it's not a crown corporation and it's not officially, it's not a national airline, it really is still the largest airline in Canada. It serves the most number of destinations. With WestJet's recent pullback out of the eastern part of Canada, Air Canada is the de facto airline in a lot of these places. So, and even at places where there are other airlines that provide service, there's not. I don't believe there's enough capacity in the rest of the industry to handle Air Canada if the pilots were to go out and strike and just all of a sudden Air Canada flights just stop flying altogether. I don't think there's enough capacity in the rest of the industry in Canada to pick up the slack if Air Canada pilots were to go on strike, and I don't want to see the Air Canada pilots go on strike, but at the same time, there's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with. I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to get myself in trouble, but there's lots of issues that need to be dealt with, so there is a good potential for labor strife at Air Canada as well. And a lot of the other airlines are making noise. In the U.S., there are regional pilots in the U.S. that are making more than the Air Canada pilots are, which is just sad on its face. So I think that's a situation that needs to be rectified. But it all comes down to this pilot shortage that has been years and years in the making, and all these airlines are just asking for permission to bypass rules and regulations because of it. And it's like, well, if there's a safety rule in place, the fact that you have a pilot shortage that you did not prepare for adequately, it does not mean that we should be taking shortcuts on safety at the end of the day. And the Canadian airlines all got in on this on the new pilot duty rules that came into effect in 2019. All the airlines pushed back against it for years. Transport Canada was trying for about 10 years to try and update them, and for years the airlines lobbied against it and tried to water it down, and they finally got something. And then in 2019, just as they were publishing it, getting ready to implement it, the airlines all came by and said, well, we have a huge pilot shortage now, so we can't implement this anymore because we're going to need 20% more pilots than we have right now just to run the same schedule. And I just think to myself, well, that's a really poor excuse, first of all, to reduce the level of safety. We know that 14-hour duty days are an absolute ridiculous concept, and 14-hour duty days that start at like 3 in the morning, or even 10 p.m. Like being required to work a 14-hour day from that point, it's just it goes against all the science of sleep and human performance. It was ridiculous on its face that we were doing it for as long as we were, and then all the airlines all cried foul and said, well, we don't have enough pilots to make a schedule and work. If you increase this, we're going to need 20% more pilots. Well, that's something you should have been thinking about. This has been coming down the pipe for 10 years. Instead of pushing back against it, maybe we should have been preparing for this. Oh, well, now we got a pilot shortage. Well, maybe we should have let this be implemented when there wasn't a pilot shortage, and you could have already been sort of over that initial shock and move forward. So it was, yeah, I don't think that a pilot shortage should be an excuse to cut back on safety margins, or to cut back on other hard-fought rights. So just this morning I was reading that the Qantas Pilots Union is in conflict with their airline because Qantas is trying to bring outside hires in directly to fly the A380. And Qantas says, well, we have all these pilots that have been working for you for 20, 25 years that would like to fly the A380. They deserve it. They bid for it. They've been here. They've got the seniority for it. And Qantas says, well, our pilot training facilities are overworked right now, so we can't train people on the A380 because we can't train the replacements. Again, this strikes me as a poor planning on the part of the airline. The airline did not make a plan for the amount of training that was going to be done. So they want to bring back all these airplanes, bring back all these A380s that they had mothballed during COVID, but they don't have a plan to do it other than to bring in outside hires. Well, you're going to have to find a way to improve the amount of training that happens in this company, to increase the amount of training that happens in this company, so that the pilots who have been here a long time and have earned their way onto that flight deck are allowed to get trained on the A380. I take a lot of issue with a lot of stuff airlines do. They whine about everything. They complain about everything. Well, we can't do this because of that, and we can't do this because of that. It's like, well, if you'd had a little bit of foresight and planning, you could have done it. But you wait until the last possible second, and then you cry foul and say, well, we can't do it now because now we don't have enough resources. Well, this is why you have planning departments. This is why you have, this is why you have executive suites that are supposed to look forward and see what are the future. Well, I want the airline to expand, but we don't want to increase our pilot training footprint. Well, if you want the airline to be bigger, you're going to need more airplanes, which are going to require more pilots. It's just simple. It's simple mathematics, but they act surprised when all of a sudden they're like, oh well, we can't quite manage this. Good business practice for success 101. Yeah, this is something that airlines are fantastic at, is just looking at their people, all the people that work for them, as a liability. Most airlines seem to see, with a few exceptions, but most airlines seem to see all of their human capital as a liability, not as an asset. As well, this costs us way too much money, rather than, well, if we keep these experienced people here, we won't have to spend more money training people. Keep people that you have happy. I think it's a lot easier in a highly skilled, highly technical industry to keep the people you have, maybe pay them a little bit more, but not have to retrain them, because and I think the ramp personnel are one of the key shining examples of how the airlines have really kind of dropped the ball on how they treat their people. It used to be that working on the ramp at an airline was a pretty decent job. You definitely made probably 50 to 100% over minimum wage. It was a job where you could keep it for years. You could probably retire out of it. It used to be a job you could retire out of. And then the airlines slowly cut the wages year by year with every contract. Oh, it's just squeezed just a little tighter. We won't quite keep the wage rate up to inflation. Or we'll just contract out all the work. We won't hire our own people. We'll hire Swissport instead, who pays their people minimum wage, and then be surprised when we don't get good service from them. Well, yeah, these guys make minimum wage. Now, it's not the most skilled job in the world, but it is. There's a lot of individual skills that when you're working the ramp at an airline, you have, driving a tug and pushing an airliner back with a tug is not something you learn overnight. It takes some practice to get good at it, to be able to do it reasonably quickly. Yeah, you can kind of do it. If you do it really slowly, a new guy can do it. But if you want to get that airline pushed off the gate in less than 4 or 5 minutes, an experienced hand will do it a lot faster. Loading baggage is throwing baggage around, but knowing how to position the equipment properly and how to efficiently load bags, stack them up in an efficient way, something that comes with experience. But experience is not something that could be measured economically, so hence we don't look upon it as being valuable. Yeah, and exactly. The cost of recruiting, onboarding, training, etc. to replace is a much greater cost than looking after good employees. Exactly. And customer service agents are another great example of where it seems like it's a simple job and we can hire anybody off the street. We can hire a 16-year-old to probably do this and they'll probably do it. And it's like, yeah, but it takes you a couple weeks to train them the computer system. But it takes months and months to really kind of learn the ins and outs of the computer system and how to kind of keep people happy and what kind of, and there's all sorts of tricks, things you can look for. So when they're, the perfect example is rebooking people, and a lot of it happens automatically nowadays, but I used to be like that. The customer service agents, someone would walk up and their flight's canceled. It's like, I need to be rebooked to get me here. And the customer service agent will say, well, our airline's next flight to this destination is this time tomorrow. And they're like, well, I need to get there today. An experienced agent would be like, well, I know that there's a flight that goes from here to that other airport, so if I put you on a connection through there, I can probably get you there today, or even maybe on the competition. They know how to search the system for other options that may still achieve the same goal, that may get you to your destination at the same time, but not a new person probably wouldn't know all these things, wouldn't have learned these tricks. So the experience can be huge. The airline industry is it's a highly technical industry. There's a lot of systems that go into it. Experience is a real asset there, but oftentimes the airlines don't look upon people's experience, and especially at the outstations, they'll just farm it out to anybody. We'll hire somebody like Swissport, and Swissport has got a reputation for hiring minimum wage employees, paying them very little, giving them very little training, and then being surprised when they smash an airplane when they smash a vehicle into an airplane, or they break something because they don't know, because they were poorly trained. And it looks good on the airline's books because, we only pay X number of dollars for ground services at this airport. When we used to hire our own people, we used to have to pay X plus 50. But you don't look at the efficiencies of, well, for some reason, all of our flights leaving that airport are always late now. Well, it's because you got all these minimum wage people that A, don't care, B, are inexperienced and can't do the job quickly. It costs you things in imperceptible ways. You're saving lots of money, but you're also wasting lots of money too. Anyways, I should probably stop ranting about that. That's probably enough of that. How are we doing here? Okay, we just passed Babbitt there. Let's just do another quick check here at Babbitt. So 1508, 12.8. Babbitt. Where is it here? Here it is, 1508, right on time, and 12.8. So we're now only about 200 pounds up on the fuel. So we're burning fuel a little bit faster than planned, but we're right on time still. So that's looking good. We're still on track to get to Portland a little bit early. And we do have estimated quantity of fuel at Portland, 8.2. I believe we need 5.6 to go to our alternate, which I believe was Seattle. I honestly didn't look that closely at it. It was Seattle. So the things are looking pretty good. The one thing that's kind of odd about the way I do these streams, it's not odd, but the way I do these streams, I try to keep them a little bit engaging, so I don't go through the whole hour pre-flight rigmarole. We do the aircraft setup, but what I don't normally do is I don't normally do a flight plan review with you guys before we get and this is part of it. Depending on the airline, but you'll show up usually about an hour before departure and you'll get the flight plan at that point. Oftentimes nowadays we have them on the tablets, so we just download it. I have to take a train from the parking lot into the terminal. I usually, when I'm on the train, is when I start downloading the flight plan. So even before I get to the airport, I've got the flight plan in my hand. But the flight starts when you get the flight plan, and you start looking over the flight plan, and you want to make sure there's you want to see all sorts of things in here, and you want to check them all before you even get to the airplane. You want to know what the risk factors are before the flight even starts. So the first thing you do when you come to the flight plan, I usually just check to make sure, of course, I've got the right flight plan and we've got the right type of aircraft. Usually one of the first things I go to is the MEL list, which we don't actually have an MEL list. We don't have any MEL items listed today, but that's one of the first things I go to because that's one of the first things that's going to be different, that's going to potentially affect things. So I have a lot of faith that the computerized systems that dispatch has will get me to my destination. They'll calculate the fuel burn correctly and they'll get me to my destination. So usually one of the first things I want to see is the MELs. What is broken on this airplane? What's going to potentially impact and change our operation? Do we have a generator offline? Do we have a brake removed? Or is something like, the passenger seat 3 alpha doesn't recline. Sometimes, most of the time, a lot of the MELs, you look at them and they're passenger cabin convenience items. Yeah, okay, it's not ideal that things are broken in the passenger cabin, but does it affect the safety of the flight overall? No. But this is one of the first things I come to is the MELs, and I say, okay, so what's broken on this airplane? And if there is anything broken, I'll immediately go to the actual MEL document, and I will go and read all that stuff and see how it impacts the flight. Before I even start reading much of the rest of the flight plan, I need to know what the impacts are. Is there a fuel burn increase? Well, if you don't have an APU, they usually have to increase the fuel burn because you got to start an engine, then you got to at the gate. Then they disconnect the air hose, push you back. Then you do a cross bleed start. So usually you add some extra fuel if you don't have an APU. So that's one of the first things I look at is what are the MELs, what's the broken stuff on the airplane, if any, and how is that going to impact the operation? Does it reduce the landing categories we can do? Does it increase the weather minimums, landing distances? What are the impacts? That's one of the first things I look for. One of the other big things I look for right away then is the fuel. And most of the time I bottom line it. I generally have a lot of faith in the numbers that our flight planning systems generate, so I don't look too carefully at the trip fuel. I look it over, but I don't look too carefully at the trip fuel, contingency, the alternate, the final reserve. That's all calculated. What I usually go to is the extra fuel, which is often not marked as extra, but it's usually allocated for specific reasons, and the dispatcher will have it in their remarks. 10 minutes of fuel due to ATC delays, 5 minutes of fuel due to weather delays. What kind of extra fuel am I getting? So how much margin do I have, and what kind of delays are they seeing, expecting? Is fuel going to be tight? If we're tankering fuel, we're going to somewhere where fuel is really cheap, where fuel taxes are really cheap, and I've got 2,000 pounds of extra fuel I'm lugging back with me just because it's cheaper to buy it there and bring it to the next place than to buy it at the next place. Okay, well now I've got fuel. But that's one of the next things I go to is usually bottom line it for me. What are my extra fuels? What is the difference between my min takeoff fuel and my actual planned takeoff fuel? So today we got 1,400 pounds extra. That's 15 minutes in this airplane. It's not a lot. If the weather's good, I don't anticipate any delays, then it's fine. So after this, then I'll start looking at what's our alternate and what's the weather doing. So I kind of bounce around because I really kind of have a priority. So what's the alternate? What's the weather doing? Where's my weather here? Somewhere in here is my weather. There it is. So I'll look at my weather. So our destination, Portland, it's few at 200 with some shallow fog scattered at 1,000. And the forecast says it's going to be variable 3 plus 6, 900 few scattered 1,500. Basically, it's going to be VFR all day. Our alternate, similar. So I don't even really need an alternate that badly. Make sure that my alternate is also good, and see if there's any weather issues that are going to affect our departure as well. We're going to have a low vis departure, thunderstorms, icing, anything like that, turbulence, that sort of thing. So after that, then I sort of go back to the beginning, and I really start to kind of look through the whole thing, see what the cost index is, see what the cruise altitude is, and make sure that that's all reasonable, that I think we can make our cruise altitude. If you plan 35,000 on a 200-mile trip, chances are you're not going to make it to 35,000 realistically. See what any dispatcher remarks that they might have and get ready. And oftentimes I will make notes on the flight plan as I'm looking through it. I'll make little notes things that I want to remember, because I may phone my dispatcher back and ask them some questions. Hey, why did you do this? Why did you set this way? Why is the route this way? On the longer flights, I'll start looking at the route and saying, is it a direct route? Easiest thing is to look at the map on the last couple pages and see, is there a direct route, or is it something roundabout? And then if there is something that's unusual as roundabout, why? So this one's kind of a little bit goes off to the west and then head north. I know why we did that, of course, because there's a big mountain right here that we have to get over. So the star in Las Vegas kind of takes us that way. The star from Las Vegas kind of works out pretty direct after that. The other thing too, of course, is that it needs to intercept the SID. The other thing too is that over Nevada, there's a bunch of military airspace where I'm sure they don't test any UFOs at all. So yeah, it kind of keeps us around that. But if it was to go like way out here and head north, I'd be like, okay, so why? Well, we've had reports of severe turbulence in this area, or there's thunderstorms in this area that we're trying to route you around. ATC is having staffing issues in this particular area, so you get routed around that. So if we're not getting the direct route, what's the reason? Oh, you get a better tailwind if we actually take it a little bit further west, but then you really pick up this nice tailwind, so it'll actually get you there faster. Sometimes the dispatcher will make these changes manually. Sometimes the flight planning software will change the stuff automatically. So the flight planning software will look at it and say, when the dispatcher says, okay, Alaska 683, Las Vegas to Portland, plan, and it'll load up the information about the loading of the airplane, and then it'll quickly run 500 or 1,000 different possible flight plans at different altitudes between these two destinations, and it will pick the most optimal one, usually the most optimal fuel burn, not the most optimal time, but the most optimal fuel burn. And so it will automatically have picked an altitude that gives it the best wind performance, that gives it the best, the best temperatures and everything. So the best routing that is most efficient, that picks up the tailwind for the longest. So all these things will kind of be worked together and calculated with this flight plan. But then the dispatcher will look it over, and they may make modifications. They may say, well, the route that Lido chose took us right through this forecast set of thunderstorms when they're there. So Lido may not know about all the weather information, or there may be some PIREP, so severe turbulence. We don't want to go there. So then the dispatcher will say, reprogram it with a route that passes through X waypoint, which is exactly what you can do in SimBrief. You can say, I want my routing, pick me a new routing that passes through X waypoint, and SimBrief will find you a new routing. Unlike the dispatching software, it won't run 500 or 1,000 permutations and say, well, this is the most efficient routing fuel-wise based on passing through that one point. It'll just kind of randomly generate one, but it does a reasonable job. And this is not a multi-million-dollar piece of software that we're paying a lot of money for. It's freeware, for crying out loud. So the fact that it auto-generates a route at all is quite impressive sometimes. So we'll look at the weather. We'll look at the significant weather and see if there's any significant weather en route, any forecast of isolated embedded thunderstorms, potential turbulence. We'll see where the jet stream falls relative to our flight plan. See if that could potentially cause any turbulence, and see if we might want to make any modifications. Once we kind of look through all that stuff, we've looked through the loading as well to make sure that we're not going to be overweight for landing, because that's often an issue on a lot of aircraft, especially on shorter flights, or maybe flights where you're carrying a lot of fuel because your alternate's far away. Sometimes you end up with this issue where the amount of fuel you can carry is limited by the landing weight. If you carry any more fuel, you'll be overweight for landing by the time you get there. So that's another thing that you kind of have to look for us on. It's not a gotcha in every airplane, but some airplanes, yes. Some airplanes, no. Depends on the particular aircraft you're flying. And then last but not least, I'll usually come down to the NOTAMs and start paging through the NOTAMs at the destination, the origin, the destination, and the alternate. The origin and the destination, you're really looking at most of the NOTAMs. You're trying to see what taxiways are closed, what might affect your taxi route, runways that are closed, modifications to SIDS, modification to stars and approaches at the arrival airport. For the alternate airport, I don't usually look through the NOTAMs quite as thoroughly. Depends on what I think the likelihood of me going to the alternate is. The things I look for at the alternate, things like modifications to the approaches and closed runways. So things that will really impact my ability to get there and actually land at the alternate. So changes to the approaches, changes to the closed runways. Those are the things I look for that might impact it. Otherwise, if it's pretty good weather, so today the weather's looking pretty good in Portland. I'm not expecting to probably have to go to SeaTac unless something really untoward happens in Portland, like the airport's closed or a bomb threat or something like that. Outside of anything like that, I think we're probably going to make it to Portland. So I will look at, I'll just look at the most basic stuff. I'll look at the airport and just say, hey, any of the runways closed? Are all the runways closed? Okay, well that could affect my ability to land there. Approaches, any changes to the minimums and the approaches that might, especially if the weather's close to minimums, might affect the suitability as an alternate. Beyond that, I don't worry too much about taxiway closures. As long as I can get the airplane on the ground at the alternate, I worry about the taxiway closures when we get there. But certainly for the destination and the origin, I want to know kind of what's going on. Have an idea of what taxiways are closed. Some airlines have a philosophy they want you to plan your taxi routes. Some would rather you don't plan your taxi routes because they're afraid of expectation bias. There is something nice about planning your taxi route and being aware of what's closed so that you're not surprised by the routings you get if they're perhaps a little unorthodox. But if you pre-plan all of your taxi routes, then you get this expectation bias where you're gonna expect to hear this taxi clearance, and even if they give you something slightly different, you may not hear the slight difference because you're so keyed in on expecting this one particular routing. So, yeah. That sort of gives you an idea of some of the stuff that I would go through. So that right there has now killed probably about 15 minutes by the time I've gone through all that information, and potentially also called the dispatcher to ask them for clarification, maybe slight amendments if I feel like there's something that's not quite right, maybe a little bit more fuel, something I see that they don't see, or a risk that I think maybe they haven't adequately accounted for. Honestly, it doesn't happen all that often. Depends on the length of flight too. So the one flight that I used to do all the time that I would always call the dispatcher on was Denver. So most of the flights I would never call the dispatcher unless there was something really specific that I needed. If I felt like they had not adequately accounted for weather or ground delays or something like that, and I really felt we needed more fuel for that, or maybe we need a different alternate because I think by the time we actually get there, because we're delayed, the alternate's not going to be valid, things like that. Maybe we need a takeoff alternate. We don't have one specified, so we don't have one specified today because it's pretty nice in Las Vegas. Those are the kind of things I call, but I usually wouldn't call on an every flight basis. I don't feel it's necessary. The information is there. The dispatcher doesn't need their time necessarily taken up by every single pilot calling for every single flight. So if everything's kind of pretty situation normal, there's nothing unusual, we can do it. The one exception that I called religiously personally was when we used to do Montreal to Denver. And the thing about Montreal to Denver was that flight was tight for fuel. And when I say tight, I mean we never got extra fuel. We usually had the legally mandated 5% contingency fuel, and that was it. And the other thing about Denver in the summers, just like Dallas in the summer, you get thunderstorms almost every day in Denver in the summer at some point. So it's always in the forecast that there's thunderstorms. The alternate's really close. There's no extra fuel for holding. I would always touch base with my dispatcher, and part of it was just to convince myself that the dispatcher was monitoring the situation. I had a lot of cases where, even though the dispatcher, when you get in the airline level, we have what's called a co-authority dispatch, which basically means that the dispatcher and the captain both have equal authority on the flight plan up until the point where the flight begins. And it's defined differently, but usually the co-authority ends when the brakes are released for takeoff. That's when the co-authority ends and the captain becomes the sole authority for the flight plan. Before that, the dispatcher has to consent and agree to every change. Every change that's made has to be done with a full consensus of both the captain and the dispatcher. Even though the dispatcher, once the aircraft is airborne, is no longer responsible for the flight in the sense that their permission is required and their consent is required to make any changes, the captain can make changes unilaterally. The dispatcher still has to be kept in the loop and has to be aware, and has to also inform the flight crew of anything that they become aware of that the flight crew may not be aware of. So whether the destination that's far enough away that the flight crew may not be aware of it yet. ATC delays, holding that's happening at the destination airport, things like that. The dispatcher has a responsibility to kind of monitor the situations and advise the flight crew of any changes that may impact their flight and their arrival and everything else. What I found with a lot of shorter flights is that a lot of times the dispatchers just don't have time to do that. By the time they get the time you get going, so oftentimes you're flying an hour flight, the dispatcher hasn't had a chance to look over and see if your flight's doing more than once or twice, because they've got 20 flights on their desk that they're kind of monitoring. So unless something changes that they really kind of are paying attention to, oftentimes smaller things will get away from them. And I found that happen a lot on the Dallas flights, where you'd have bad weather would move in Dallas, or holding would start happening, and the dispatcher would never tell you. And that frustrated me to know that the dispatcher was not monitoring the situation carefully and was unaware of stuff that was kind of going on and was not giving us the heads up on these things. Because Denver was so tight for fuel, I refused to leave without knowing that the dispatcher was attentive. And almost every time I went to Denver, I had the same dispatcher. They always put you on the same dispatch desk for the same routes. And this guy always seemed to be working every single day that I ended up going to Denver. And I call him up and I just say, hey, so we're going to Denver today. I see the weather. What do you think of the weather in Denver and the alternates? And then he would rattle off the weather. He'd say, yeah, I see this here. We've got this plan here. If that doesn't work out at this time, I've got this other alternate. If you get holding on the way there, I've got this technical alternate on the way there where you can stop and buy fuel. You can stop early and buy fuel if we know there's holding and you're not going to be able to last through the holding because you've only got 7 minutes or 11 minutes of extra fuel. And he would rattle off all sorts of plans, and that would usually satisfy me, that we've had this conversation and that I know that A, he knows the risk factors of the flight, B, he knows the things he's watching for, and C, I know that he's watching them. Just really, I just need to make that connection and know that he is aware of the risk factors of the flight and he is monitoring those risk factors. And as long as we had that conversation, I was okay with that. I think with a lot of the longer range flights, you do get that a lot of the time. There's so much going on these long range flights, it's almost impossible for the captain to really have a good sense of everything that's going on. You're talking about 14-hour flights. You're talking about 175 waypoints between here and the destination. You're going to fly through 25 different flight information regions in 10 different countries before you get to your destination. You're going to fly halfway around the globe. You're going to encounter 6 different weather systems between now and your destination. It's almost impossible for the captain to keep track of all that. So and take it all in that 1 hour. And really, it's not 1 hour. The captain has maybe 15 to 20 minutes to take in all this information before they have to go to the airplane and start prepping the airplane for departure. So this hour is not just an hour to review the flight plan. It's an hour to review the flight plan, brief the crew, and get the airplane prepped for departure, walk around, flight deck setup, FMS programming, ATC clearances, briefings. All that stuff has to be done in that 1 hour, maybe. Having that extra resource of having the dispatcher being able to parse through the information and give you a better sense of the important, the really big threats, the really important threats on this flight, I think is useful, and have those good discussions of what are the risk factors, what are we going to do to mitigate those risks. So I think when you get into the long range flying, you will probably tend to find you get a lot more one-on-one dispatcher communication. But certainly with shorter flights, you're not going to call for every single flight 3 times a day. But when you're doing 1, 12, 14-hour, 16-hour flight, one call to the dispatcher at the beginning of the day could certainly put a lot of information in front of you that you may not otherwise be thinking about. Anyways, we're getting there. Looks like the overlay is working today for the whole flight. Says 43 minutes to go. Looks like it's pretty accurate. So yeah, we should be getting set up for our arrival into Portland here soon. I see a bunch of you guys watching, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bump up that failure rate. I make sure that it is set to at least the number of people that are watching here. So if you want to get more people watching here, you need to set up aircraft failures, all systems, random. So right now I see 7 people. It's not a whole bunch, but that's something. So 7 events per 10 hours. And I'm going to limit the events to 2. So we don't get too many things going crazy. I don't think too much is going to happen anyways, but we'll execute that. What I'll do is I'll return. Yeah, okay, so it looks like it's... Hopefully something will fail in the next little while, because I always do enjoy good failure. But in the meantime, I think it's about time for us to start setting up for our arrival here. We're about 170 miles, 180 miles to our top of descent point here for Portland. So it's amazing how quickly that time goes by as we just sort of sail up this west coast or western edge of Nevada, just sort of the Nevada-California border here. You got a lot of kind of desertly terrain, nothing too exciting down there. You got a little bit of farming going on down there. Nothing too exciting going on here. One other thing I did want to kind of talk about, because I saw it as well yesterday, and I thought it was really neat, and I don't know if I quite get on this myself, but I know that they will have a target audience. So there was something released yesterday by, I believe it's Red Wing or Redbird Simulations, and what they released was a... let me see if I can pull it up here. But what they released yesterday, what they announced yesterday, was a USA 1935 pack. So I'm just trying to pull it up here really quickly, just so we can look at the pictures. If I can just find it here. There it is. Red Wing Simulations, USA 1935. So this is actually a really neat idea. I hadn't heard of this. Apparently they've done this for a couple of European countries, but they haven't done this. This is new for the US anyways, but what a really neat idea. So the idea is to take you back to 1935 and fly around in 1935. So these are add-on scenery packs that basically will change landmarks around the country, around the U.S. So, like, for example, the Golden Gate Bridge is under construction in 1935. So here it is. You can see in this beautiful picture that it's under construction. So they've it's multiple different packs. So there's the USA pack, which kind of covers landmarks across the whole U.S. and it's really kind of neat. Like they've done a number of things. They've added different points of interest based on that particular era. They've actually added beacons for the contract air mail routes, so you can actually fly the original contract air mail routes, kind of the original airways before we had VORs, and even before they had NDBs, they had these ranges. So they've added kind of nav aids that are suitable to the time period, and then they also have a whole bunch of airports that they have changed and modified to represent what these airports actually look like at the time. So there's LaGuardia, 1935. You know, a bunch of grass fields on the beach, essentially. There's only so much you can modify, but what a neat kind of idea to be able to fly some of these places some of these old airports, Newark Metropolitan Airport, you know, we've got these classic aircraft that are being published. Why not fly them in a classic style? So what a really neat idea. I had not heard of this before, but what a fantastic idea. What a neat way to kind of use the sim as a time machine. Take you back to just a very different time. You just no jetways, no, in most places not even paved runways. Like most of the runways were cinders and dirt, gravel. What a nice idea. And a great way to use those vintage aircraft. It's a little bit odd sometimes flying these vintage aircraft around to these modern airports, but you go take your DC-3 and go fly it from the original LaGuardia field over to Newark or something like that. Like, what a more realistic kind of environment. Obviously, there's a limitation to what they can do. They can't change all the generated scenery. But one thing they also did as well is they did turn down the night lighting. So when you fly at night with the 1935 pack installed, the cities are apparently less bright, which makes it feel a little bit more, realistic for that time frame, where there was not nearly as much lighting, as street lighting, outdoor lighting as there is in the modern age. So just to sort of again set the mood a little bit more for this. But what a nifty little idea, though. I don't know if it's something I would get into. I'm not huge on the vintage aircraft. I like them, don't get me wrong, I like them, but as you can tell from my streams, I'm more into flying the modern aircraft and using it as a simulation of the modern world. But nevertheless, this is a really neat idea. I think there's definitely a huge market for this. I think there's lots of people that will kind of enjoy this. The only problem to me is that it's all available as like individual purchases, which is kind of nice, but I think it would also be useful to have kind of like a pack. So they've even outlined like the airports that will be involved in different routings here. I think it would be great if you kind of put them together as like one pack and buy this for like $40 instead of having to pay like $10 or $15 for each individual airport and everything. So, but I think that's a great idea. I think it'd be tons of fun. I think there's definitely a lot of market for that. It's not my cup of tea personally, but I can definitely see a lot of people who like to fly their vintage aircraft around, and I like the vintage aircraft every once in a while just for a lark, just to kind of see what flying looked like. Flying is such an almost sterile experience nowadays in this computerized world. You know, you don't have a lot of one-on-one contact with the flight controls and with the aircraft anymore. You know, there's a lot of computers between you and the aircraft, just like in your car nowadays. You don't really drive your car anymore. You operate the computer that is your car. That's kind of the era we live in, where you don't have that tactile feedback. I mean, how many people drive standard transmissions anymore and actually get that tactile feedback from their engine? I mean, as we move into the electric car era, that's obviously not even really something you can do. But yeah, you don't really have that connection to their driving process anymore, to the engine. And in these modern airliners, you really don't. I mean, the engines are all controlled by FADEC, so you just simply shove the thrust levers forward, and the FADEC accelerates them as fast as it thinks that they're safely able. I'm in the 737. It's a relatively old airplane. You actually have like cables and everything, but you get to the Airbus, it's a fly-by-wire airplane. You don't have any connection to those controls back there except through the wires, through the computers. You'll lose that tactile sensation of flying sometimes. So it's kind of fun to go back to fly those vintage airplanes and to try and do that challenge of fly those vintage routes, fly them with just what they had available at the time. Very rudimentary nav aids, trying to get even a couple hundred miles carrying the airmail in a piston-powered radial engine airplane. It definitely harkens us to a very different era of aviation. I thought that was a really neat kind of neat use of the sim. I mean, we all kind of do it a little bit. Like every once in a while, I will take up a 747 and I'll call myself a Clipper. Pan Am's been gone for 30, 40 years now, but it can still live on in our memories and in the sim. Chicago Megs Field is another example where of rewriting history a little bit, if you will, or changing history a little bit. Maybe not changing it is the right word, but just making sure my dog is not chewing anything it's not supposed to. Reliving a little bit of that ancient history. Like how many of us flight sim fans flew into Meigs Field in FS4 or FS95? It was one of the ultimate just standard airports that was included. And how nice to kind of have that ability to go back in there, even in MSFS or Kai Tak as well in Hong Kong, which has been shut down for I think a good 20 years or something like that now. Again, go revisit the Kai Tak heart attack. Do that approach banking to final at like 500 feet, in between these skyscrapers. Like, what a crazy approach, and what a great way to kind of relive it in the sim. Okay, I feel like we're close enough. I definitely should be getting us set up for our arrival here into Portland. So let's first of all just pull up the weather in Portland. Maybe we'll get a tower. Nope, not yet. Got a San Francisco ground. Pardon me. That does not help me. So Portland weather, we got variable at 3 knots, 4 miles, scattered at 700, broken at 3,500, 9 and 8 degrees, 3015. All right, so let's see here. So variable at 3, I'm going to stick with the 2.8 left. Actually, the one thing I can do as well is just check the real world. I can always go to the real world as well. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Or actually, you know, it's even better. I'm just going to go to FlightAware, but what's even better than FlightAware? Let's grab the real world ATIS and let's work with that. So using the ATIS app just on my little device here. Portland PDX. All right, ATIS Zulu variable at 3. Yep, there it is. RNAV X-ray 2.8 left. Simultaneous ILS runway 28 right approach in use. Warning, runway 3 shortened. 28 left, glide slope out of service. Oh, interesting. So maybe we'll have to do the RNAV X-ray. I didn't look at the NOTAMS that carefully, so it was probably in the NOTAMS that I probably missed it. Let's pull up those charts and have a little look-see, and let's make a plan. All right. So Timbers 2 RNAV arrival, and let's pull up the ILS to runway, or sorry, the RNAV X-ray to 28 left. Can we do the RNAV X-ray? LNAV VNAV. Let's just do it as an LNAV VNAV. Yeah, it's not got the arcing one, so yeah, let's do the RNAV X-ray. Any restrictions on here? Not that I see. So yeah, let's plan on the RNAV X-ray, runway 28 left into Portland. Maver and Wallop. So are Maver or Wallop on this here? No. We're going to at some point just have to get a vector. We're going to have to connect some stuff up on this arrival at some point. Alright. So let's do this. So we're going to start this arrival at... I can't remember if it's Soern. It was Soern, right? Yeah, Soern where we start this arrival. Soern, Pizarro, Moxie. At or above 240. We go off to Portal 270 knots between 11 and 24. Timbers 270 above 11. Vance 250 between 15 and 11. And then at Flower we split off. So for 28 left, we're going to take the right turn here. So Flower between 9 and 7. Then we go to Widmer 210 5000. Rowage and Ice Axe. And then from at some point we're going to have to give ourselves direct. Actually, I can't do this yet because I haven't actually set this up here. RNAV X-ray 28 left. And let's see here. We've got to do this via, we're going to put Maver transition in there. So Maver, RNAV X-ray 28 left. Execute that. Alright, doesn't look like it changed anything here. Timbers, Vance, or Ice Axe, doesn't change anything there. So Maver, Wallop, Hipster's above 4,000. Sorry, Wallop's above 4,000. Yeah, Wallop's above 4,000. Hipster's above 3,700. There we go. Hannah above 29. Adam at 2,000 feet. And then from there, it's the VDAF path down through Yinup at a minimum of 1280 down to runway 28 left. That's all in there. Missed approach is then 2,100 feet, climbing left turn, 4,000 and direct. So straight ahead, 2,100 feet. And then a climbing left turn to 4,000, direct to UBG VOR. And hold there. Alright, good. So that's all in there. Let's see here. We're going to do a flap 30 landing today. Unable to do 70 knots at Portal. That's fine. Alright, I think we got it all sort of set up here. Is GSX stable for you? I used to have it P3D, but just use Pushback Express by FS2 crew now in MSFS. I would say yes. GSX is mostly pretty stable. I do have some issues with it once in a while. It's not perfect. Again, like I said before, it's not perfect, but I would say it works pretty much as well as it did in the P3D era now. It was a little finicky at first, and I think, but what is it now? Flightbeam, FS Dream Team. They do a very good job of kind of keeping their software updated and fixing bugs and things like that. They definitely kind of keep up with their software and update it pretty regularly. So in the beginning, it didn't work fantastic. It worked most of the time. I'd say that it's definitely improved in quality as it's been out there, and bugs have been slowly squashed with the various updates. So for me, GSX is a must-have now. I used to use FS2 Crew for the pushback as well, and I liked it. I liked the voice interaction. That was nice. But I like the hands-off. It's just going to push me to a location without me having to do anything. It'll identify where the taxiway is and push it on there for me without me doing anything. I like that aspect of GSX. So I use GSX. I prefer it to FS2 Crew. I don't... if you could combine both, if you could make GSX voice activated, oh my god, that would be amazing. That would be the ultimate add-on for ground crew. Because that's the one thing FS2 Crew has going for it, Pushback Express, is that it's voice activated. And I love the voice activation feature. But it just... the one thing it lacks, I think, is the ability for you to just sort of say, hey, push me back tail left. And that's what you would do in the real world. That's what you say to the ground crew. Yeah, the ground tolls push back tail left. And that's what you would. That's how you would normally kind of deal with it. That's how you would interact with the ground crew and do it normally. So that is, I think that's a more realistic scenario. So I think if GSX was voice activated, I think that would be the ultimate realistic ground crew system. That's the one thing I do like about Pushback Express. I like the voice activation. All right, anywho, we're going to get this going here. You have control.
I have control.
Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
All right, trigger that all up properly here. All right, so today we are doing the Timber 2 RNAV arrival into Portland. Radar required, DDR, GPS required, RNAV 1. City to Timbers transitions, not us. Non-GPS aircraft, that's not us. And caution, intermittent pair jumping activity 6 miles south-southeast of Flower in the city of Skydive Oregon Airport. So here we go. At and below 14,500. So we just have to keep an eye out as we approach Flower here for, you know, we don't want to hit any skydivers. Make a horrible mess on the windshield. Okay. We've gone through the waypoints, so all the routing constraints are as published in there. The one speed restriction in here: turbojet aircraft descend via Mach number until intercepted 280 knots, maintain 280 knots until slowed by the star. So we're going to do that. We're going to set this up to go /280 in the descent. So we'll leave the Mach number to 773, but we'll increase the speed to 280, and then we'll be able to fly all the speed restrictions thereafter. Alright, the approach we're doing today, we're planning the RNAV X-ray runway 28 left into Portland. WAS, no frequency settings required. Final approach course inbound will be 283, and that should be there on the legs page. Slide down there enough pages there. 284 within 1 degree is fine. LNAV VNAV DA of 368. So we're going to use the LNAV VNAV DA of 368 today. Can't guarantee we can do LPV, so 368. Oh, I'm just covering it up, aren't I? I thought I had left just enough for him to see it there. So there, 368. And it's VMC 900 views, 368 should get us in. That's 345 feet above the field, so I don't see that being a problem to get in that way. 368, there we go. The touchdown zone at 23 feet, the airport elevation at 31, rounded up to 50, that's fine. Missed approach is as published or is otherwise assigned by ATC if we get any ATC online. The MSA, all sectors around Portland is 5,900 feet. All sectors around the threshold for runway, 5,900 feet. Uncompensated barrel VNAV systems, LNAV VNAV not authorized below -6. It's a nice day. It's 9 degrees there. DME DME-RP 0.3 not authorized. Simultaneous approach is authorized. Use of flight director or autopilot providing RNAV track guidance required during simultaneous operations. So we will have the flight director up. We will probably leave the autopilot on. Not that I think there's going to be anybody landing on runway 28 right next to us right now. VDSI ILS glide path, not coincident. All right. I don't know exactly where the star is going to fold onto it here, but at some point here we're going to have to give ourselves directed one of these waypoints to get us turned inbound. And the VNAV path is once we get to Adam at 2,000 feet. Pappy's on the left. We're going to land in Portland. I'm going to get a gate shortly here, but we are going to make a right turn off the runway. Right turn off the runway might make Echo. There's no high speeds really. Bravo 3 is the only high speed that's kind of in our direction. Might be hard pressed to make that one. We'll take a hard right turn on Echo or Bravo 2 if we need to go back to the gate. We'll figure out where the gate is shortly. Terrain again, 5,800 I think I said. 5,900. All sectors around. Portland. Weather is a little bit of low cloud, but I don't think it's going to interfere with the approach too much. It's 4 miles in mist, so we'll probably spot the airport somewhere around, somewhere between Adam and Yinup. And yeah, we'd only need 5/8 of a mile to do this approach if we've got the lighting on RBR 3000. Operational NOTAMS. So we determined that the glide slope is out from looking at the ATIS. Other NOTAMs on here that are particularly relevant. Extended areas around, destination alternate. We're looking for destination airports. So SMR is unserviceable. 2-8 left, 9 on standard, that's fine. 2-8 left closed Wednesday, that's not today. SIDS we're not worrying about. ILS 2-8 left glide path is unserviceable right now. Yeah, there's that NOTAM right there. Anything for the RNAV X-ray? 2-8 left. I don't see anything. I don't see anything for the stars. So operational NOTAMs are good. Fuel to go off to our alternate of Seattle. We need about 5.8. We're showing 7.2 when we get there. So we're looking at an extra of about... we're looking at a little over 2 tons extra. We could definitely do a go around, come back and try it again without losing our alternate. Hold for maybe 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have to probably bug out for our alternate. That's all I got. Any questions? Any questions?
No questions?
Alright, nicely done. We're coming up to our top of descent point here. Nothing's failed yet, but we keep hoping something's going to fail. Keep hoping. You never know. Alright, what do we got here? We got about 50 miles till our top of drop, so we're all briefed up. We're ready to go. Ugh. Auto brake 3 he's got, and that's actually one thing I didn't do is I didn't set up the... nope, not that one. This one. Star, RNAV, flaps 30, bleeds on, dry runway, auto brake 3, no single engine taxi. We're going to a gate. APU, we'll get the after landing procedure, it might be a short taxi in, and then, so what did I say here? Minimum altitude is 368, the final approach fix is at 2,000, and I believe the missed approach was 4,000, which was before I didn't take there. I believe that's everything. Let me just check the missed approach here again. It is 4,000, yeah, okay, good, perfect. All right, and we got terrain up because there is some high terrain. We are kind of, Portland is kind of in some mountainous areas, so we definitely want to make sure. There's a nice, beautiful crater lake right there. Really not spending much time looking out the window at the scenery because we're just sitting here yakking away, so kind of nice to look at the scenery a little bit. What was I going to do? I was going to look up a gate for our arrival today. So let's just check it out. Las Vegas to Portland by Alaska Airlines. And I kind of am limited because I find that some of the gates in Portland don't work properly. The wrong bridge always wants to pull up to the wrong side of the airplane. It's very annoying sometimes to deal with. Alright. So there's one scheduled for later today. Let's check out what gate they're going to. Alaska 649 is going to arrive at gate Charlie 9. So let's just have a quick look here at gate Charlie 9. And then we're going to get ready to go down here in a minute. And so it'll show the charts for Portland. I just want to see the parking gates. Charlie 9 is on the outside. See, I don't like Charlie 9, so I think we're going to go somewhere on the inside, maybe Charlie 8 or Charlie 10. And this row of gates, for some reason that I don't understand, whenever I pull up to them in the sim, the bridge from the other gate on the right-hand side always comes up to the airplane for some reason. These gates, they're annoying like that, so I'm not going to head to those gates today. Alright, but we're almost there. Nothing has failed. Boo-hoo. I was flying the Fenix last night and I was trying to get stuff to fail, and the only thing that kept failing was fuel pumps. I lost 4 out of 6 fuel pumps in the 320 last night. That's the only thing that seemed to fail. And that seems to be the most common failure when you try to trigger a random failure in the Fenix. It seems to trigger fuel pump failures more than anything else. It triggers the occasional APU failure, but it doesn't seem to trigger any of the really out there failures. Computer failures, FACSEC and ELAC failures. It doesn't seem to trigger any of those too often. You always have to trigger those ones manually. Pressurization issues, those would be the ones I would like to see. 2 cabin pressurization system faults or something like that. Double cabin pressurization system faults, so you lose your pressurization. That's the kind of stuff. Random engine failures. I'm getting tired of the fuel pumps failing all the time, because it seems like every time I trigger a random failure, half the random failures are fuel pumps. It's not that it's a non-issue, because it does cause some issues. I didn't take my control back here. I have control.
You have control.
Thank you. I'm a little disappointed with some of the random failures they do. I wish there was some more interesting ones that they would do. Again for a minute. Some nice external screenshots. Alright, coming up to our top of descent here at Passaro. Any ATC online for Portland yet? Nobody yet. I will say that my overlay does seem to have remained pretty stable this time around, which is kind of nice. Last time I had to restart it once, but this time it seems to have connected to the sim and maintained a good solid connection here, which is good, because I like this overlay software, mostly because it runs with a much smaller memory footprint than SimToolkit Pro. I like SimToolkit Pro, don't get me wrong, but this got a much smaller memory footprint here. I can't even find it on here. Let's see here. It's not in like my top 20. Let's see if I can find it here. It is currently using... It's not even listed here. How is it not listed here? There it is. It is currently using 0.1% of my processor. 0.2, 0.1. It's using such an inconsequential amount. It's great. I love it. I wish they all would use this little. Okay, I forget what the bottom altitude was on this. Was there bottom altitude on the star? There should have been. 5,000. And there's the reset MCP altitude. So there we go. 5,000. Here we go with our descent momentarily. I'm just going to zip this all the way down to 5,000. Uninterrupted VNAV descent because we got no ATC still. Descent checklist.
Descent checklist. Pressurization. Landing altitude is 50 feet. Recall checked. Auto brake. Level 3. Landing data.
VREF 149. Minimums 368 feet.
VREF 149. Minimums 368 feet. Approach briefing.
Completed.
Descent checklist completed.
And down we go. What perfect timing on the descent checklist. Excellent. Down we go. Let's see here. Just trying to think if there's anything else interesting to talk about. But if you guys have anything you want to talk about at all, I really didn't come up with a whole bunch of new topics. For those of you that are keen on my Embraer videos, there's I did release the lights video last week, which was not a particularly exciting topic, but it's something that just had to be covered. It's sort of a subtopic of the general topic on that aircraft. So since I had done the aircraft general, I decided to do the lighting. It's a fairly quick and easy topic, and it allowed me to get another video out there. The next systems video will be the doors, which is, again, it's a subtopic of the aircraft general, but the doors on the Embraer are so ridiculously complicated that they kind of need their own module. So I hopefully it won't be a long module, but there's a lot of stuff to say when it comes to using the doors. After we do that, I haven't decided 100% which topic I would like to cover next on my systems videos, but I'm leaning towards I don't even know. Leaning towards one of the major systems, so I'm thinking either electrical or hydraulics. Probably electrical, because it sort of so much stuff revolves around the electrical system. I think that would be kind of the next system I would like to cover is electrical, probably followed by hydraulics. Those are kind of the two lifeblood systems of most modern aircraft. So covering those kind of mostly, so many other systems build off of those two systems that it's very useful to cover those systems early on. So those are kind of the next couple videos I got scheduled. I also have finally done the final approach and landing video in my Embraer tutorial operation series, and I'm not totally happy with it, mostly because the aircraft is not up to a great level yet. There's all sorts of stuff it doesn't really do that it should do, that it doesn't do well, that it's still a little frustrating to operate. You can kind of get it from point to point, but it's not there yet. I really am looking forward to them redoing the guidance, the flight guidance system, the flight management system, those two systems when they are redone, and also the thrust management system too, because basically it's always calling for maximum takeoff thrust, and it's like, in climb it really shouldn't be doing that. So you're reaching altitude like incredibly quickly in this Embraer because it's climbing at toga thrust all the time. It's like the engine's never going to last if you climb at toga thrust all day long. So it's getting there, and hopefully over the next couple of iterations they start to really kind of flesh out some of the major portions of the electronics, because the avionics are really a lot of the charm of that aircraft. It's a very distinctive aircraft with the Honeywell FMSs. So hopefully when we get a few more updates to those major systems, it'll really start to become a little bit more of a pleasure to fly. Right now it's a little bit awkward, and you kind of crunch through a bunch of stuff and force things to work, but it's not great. But I'm going to continue making the videos to sort of teach people how to operate the aircraft properly, and hopefully in the future I'll be able to kind of redo the videos with proper operations. They have been adding stuff. They've added, they keep on adding more and more features slowly but surely. The systems are kind of being fleshed out while they're also working on this major FMS update, so it's coming along. The one other thing I did, I wouldn't fly the E-Jet in MSFS. And right now, yes. For me to do something about Airbus, I'm going to say no. And the only reason I'm going to say no is because Airbus has been beaten to death on the internet, and that's the reason why I'm enjoying kind of doing videos about the Embraer. The Embraer is a relatively, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's just an aircraft that's not well covered. It's not a common aircraft in the simulator world. Everyone thinks Airbuses and Boeings when they're thinking about modern airliners. Everyone thinks Airbuses and Boeings, and that's it. And the Embraer is kind of forgotten. You know, there's not a lot of information out there about the Embraer. There has been more coming out now with the FlightSim Studios one, but even then, it's still sporadic at best. You go out there, you search Airbus A320, you will find any number of videos that teach you how to operate the Airbus, SOPs, systems, just an immense volume of information out there on YouTube and the internet in general about the A320. So that's why I'm probably personally not going to do the A320. I feel like it's been done to death. That's why I did the Dash 8, was there was not a whole lot of really good information out there about the Q400. And again, ditto for the Embraer. There's not a whole lot of really good information, guidance out there for the Embraer. It's a relatively uncommon aircraft. And it's not that it's uncommon, but it's definitely not one, like I said, people think about. So, yeah, I think when FlightSim Studios finishes their Embraer, I think it's going to be a fun airplane to fly. And I think it's going to be very worthwhile at that point. It's going to take a while to get there. It's going to take a good part of a year at least to get to the point where it's really totally flyable. But I think it will be worth it in the end. But I will continue making the systems videos so people can learn from them and be ready when the aircraft is completed. It's going to take me a year or more to make these systems videos. It takes me 3 weeks to a month to make each one. I don't make them quickly because I spend a lot of time making good diagrams and putting it together very carefully, recording, re-recording, tweaking, trying to make it as educational and jam-packed with information as possible. So there's a lot of information that I try to put in all those. So yeah, it's I don't see myself doing a lot of Airbus stuff. If I start flying the Airbus in the sim, I will probably talk about why I'm doing what I'm doing and some of the techniques and things I've learned. But yeah, I just feel like there's so much information out there already about the Airbus, about the A320 that I'd just be piling on into an ocean. You know, I'd just be adding my drops to an ocean of information that's already out there. I don't think I don't think there's as much of a need for it out there. I think the Embraer, there's definitely not a whole lot of information. So good, accurate, reliable, useful information is something that I think a lot of people will find useful. But let's hope FSS actually delivers. Yeah, I am certainly hoping so. Their hearts are in the right place. They definitely want to. They're working hard on it all the time, and they're releasing new updated versions to the beta team at least once every 2 weeks, and often interim updates to fix a few things even in between. So they're definitely working on it. The other thing I was going to mention for you guys watching is I have uploaded this morning. I said I was going to do it last week. I never got around to it. This morning I uploaded it into my Discord in the stream scheduling channel, which is also a channel that's visible only to my subscribers, as well as a few other special lucky people, my FS2 Crew voice pack. So my customized FS2 Crew 737 voice pack that I recorded is now uploaded there. It's not an easy thing to use because of the way FS2 Crew is designed. The voice packs are hard-coded into the software, so you can't just add a new voice pack externally. You have to send it to FS2 Crew. They validate it. They listen to all the recordings to make sure you haven't slipped in something inappropriate in there. Check it generally for quality to make sure that the recordings are appropriate volume and everything, and then they package it with FS2 Crew and send it out there, and they hard code that new voice pack's name into the configuration screen. Otherwise, all I have, the only way I can access it is through voice recorder test is the only other one. So all these are hard coded in there. If you throw an extra folder in there, it won't add it into this option menu here. The only way to get my voice into your existing FS2 Crew is to overwrite one of the existing sets of files. And I just had a thought as well. If you have voice recorder test, you can overwrite it on there, because the trouble with taking my voice pack and overwriting an existing voice pack with it is that the next time FS2 Crew updates this software, all those voices will again overwrite the voices that you put in there. So you'd have to keep on extracting it every single time there's an update. The only one that doesn't have voices built in and downloaded and installed is the voice recorder test. But I don't think the voice recorder test was there as a default option. I think it only gets added if you download FS2 Crew's voice recorder tool. So what I'll suggest, if you guys want to do that, is install the voice recorder pack. You can go to the FS2 Crew website and get the voice recorder utility, install that, and what it will do is it will add the extra voice recorder pack user option. And the nice thing is, and there's a subscription to get your voice pack. If you find problems with the voice pack, please let me know. I can re-record some voices and re-release it, but as of right now, I think most of them are working pretty well from everything I've heard. So when you install the FS2 Crew voice recorder pack, voice recorder utility, it'll add this voice recorder test as an option. This folder is empty until you start making recordings with it, and it doesn't get overwritten with the installation. So if you go and install that voice recorder pack when the updates happen, the contents of this folder will not get overwritten, and you'll have permanent access to mine as voice recorder test. It won't show up as Captain Nabs, and there's no way I can make it show up as Captain Nabs. The only way you can do it is if I email it to FS2 Crew and it becomes part of the default installation, which I don't want to do because I want this to be something you guys can enjoy. So it's a little bit of a kludge, a little bit of a workaround. It's the best I can do, unfortunately. The way that FS2 Crew has set up their software, you can't just add a external unverified voice pack. They have to be added with the scenery, or added with the software. Let's see here. What's my Portland Tower's online? Woo! It's amazing how the simple things that amuse me. All right, 3015 on the meter here. And does he have an ATIS? He doesn't have an ATIS yet, but that's okay. He'll probably get one up soon. He can't have been online that long because I looked not too long ago and he wasn't there. So we do have an ATIS tower. All right, let's do this.
Descent checklist. Pressurizing.
Cancel checklist.
Landing altitude is 50 feet. Recall checked. Auto brake. Level 3. Landing data.
Cancel checklist.
Roger.
Transition 3015 inches. Transition set 3015.
3015. Set. Passing 14,800.
Perfect.
Now.
All right. As we go down here, I can see now our initial fixes for our approach are kind of scrolling into view here. So we're probably going to go after Vance. We'll probably go direct to Mayor and just transition onto the approach that way. And just waiting to see if Portland Tower throws up an ATIS. But in the meantime, I'm going to throw his frequency up there for me. 123.77. So I'm ready to go. There we go. And the one other thing I'm going to do now, I think, something I was going to do earlier and I forgot when we were leaving Vegas. I'm just going to have a look and see how many other aircraft are on the ground here in Portland. And basically nobody. Just tower controller and me inbound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw up the FSLTL traffic injection, just because I'm so tired of flying around empty airports. And part of it's just the time I fly, right? Like I fly mornings in North America when everybody else is, all people with normal lives are working, and here I am home alone doing nothing. So I'm going to throw some aircraft on there. Hopefully this does not kill my frame rate too much. That's my concern, is that this kills my frame rate. We'll see what happens here. It's okay right now, but as we get closer to Portland and we start drawing more and more of these aircraft, I think it's going to become more and more of an issue. So right now it's drawn 10 IFRs, 15 VFRs, and I don't think it downloaded to anybody on the ground at I don't think it drew anybody on the ground at Portland yet, but as we come around the corner, hopefully we start to draw some people, so it's not completely vacant when we get there and it looks a little bit realistic at least. Alright, anyways, we are getting down there now. Just about time to start putting on some lights. And getting ready for the next, getting ready for the approach phase here. Got nearly idle thrust, speed's coming back, Vance. We're crossing Vance at 250 knots between 11 and 15. I think that's going to work out just fine. Hopefully we can lose enough altitude here, though. This is my only concern, is that after Vance it's going to be probably a pretty steep descent down through Mayor. Drag required. Can't quite make up its mind if drag is required or not. I'll give it some drag and help it out here anyways. Having a hard time slowing down as we go downhill here, and we don't even have the anti-ice on. Got a tad of +3 already, but yeah. Now I got some targets on there. Alright, we're supposed to be at 250 knots here. Really didn't do a very good job of that. Alright, and let's go direct to Maver, and let's just transition on the approach this way. And it's working out quite well. It says Maver 9765 is the target altitude, so we are actually almost right on target here. Alright, let's do it. Alright, let's get the anti-ice on. Set engine anti-ice on.
$10,000.
Approach checklist.
Engine anti-ice is on. Stand by. Cabin crew prepare for landing.
Alright, so we will actually be able to make it down there in time. I was worried we were going to be too high, but I think it's going to be just fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be arriving at our destination shortly. If you are making a connection to another flight, please see the customer service agent
speed. And it looks like the one aircraft here is on the RNAV X-ray approach, at least that's what it looks like. 2,700 feet below, and about 8 miles ahead on the same approach. It's actually looking really good. Alright, I'm going to set 4,000. Should be our altitude there while up above 4,000 anyways, and we'll turn final there. Hopefully we'll see some aircraft on the ground when we get there, though. That'll be nice. Alright, and we're close enough now. We should be able to get GSX up here. Portland, 27 miles. Charlie, let's pick an even Charlie here. So Charlie 10. Alaska Airlines, please. Perfect. Retard. There's the path. Alright, we've intercepted the path. We're on our way down. Looking good. Oh, he threw up an ATIS now. Let's check. See what we got for an ATIS here. 340 at 4, 6 miles and missed. Broke scattered 500. And it's getting a little better. Broken at 33, 10 degrees, 3016. ILS runway 28 left, simultaneous ILS 28 right approaches in use, departing runways 28 left and 28 right. NOTAMS. I don't think he caught the NOTAM about the glide slope being unserviceable. Most people on VATSIM never seem to read the NOTAMs, never seem to do much with the NOTAMs, and I mean that's fine. The NOTAM system is a lot of work, but that sometimes throws a lot of interest at you too, like runways that are closed, glide slopes that are unserviceable. You got to work around these things. I find I enjoy that challenge. I enjoy the challenge of okay, you end up in VATSIM as a controller. Things often end up being very repetitive in VATSIM. You do the same thing day in and day out, with the same runway configurations. It gets very repetitive. So I like something that changes it up, and NOTAMs can definitely do that. Having a glide slope unserviceable, well, we can't use that approach today because the glide slope's unserviceable, or this runway's closed for maintenance. Can't use that runway today. We got to work around it. This taxiway's closed. I like working around those things. The standard operations are pretty easy, but I understand people who don't read the NOTAMs because this is not real life, so the glide slope is not actually out of service and the runway is not actually under construction. But it's a lot of work to get through it, as you saw, like the NOTAMs. Like reading the NOTAMs alone can take 15 minutes sometimes out of your pre-flight preparation to really thoroughly read them and understand them. And you have to become almost good at just scanning and saying what's important, what's not, because there's so much information in there, and oftentimes a lot of it is not relevant to your operation, but it's there and it's published for you to read just in case you need it, and it can be very frustrating to try and deal with that sometimes. Alright, so we'll call the tower pretty much as we turn final at Hipster there, so let's just get ourselves down to so we're good down to 3,700 for Hipster, and basically I'm going to at this point set for VNAV path mode, I'm going to set 2,000 for Adam. And we're going to intercept final at 2,000 feet over Adam. Did I run the approach checklist? I thought I did. Did I forget? Approach checklist.
Approach checklist. Altimeters.
3016 set.
3016 set. Approach checklist completed.
Okay, perfect. Here's that aircraft that's ahead of us. TAT is +8. We can probably get the NTAs off shortly here, and that'll help us slow down a little bit more. Basically running the aircraft at idle right now. And what are we going to have? We're going to have about a 15-mile final, I think, from Hipster inbound. Drag required. Explain. Now, 6 miles of trail of that airplane. I'm a little suspicious that he may not slow down enough, so maybe it's time for me to do some speed intervention and start slowing down here. Speed 210 for now. Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flight deck. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Captain, the cabin is secure.
Perfect. I don't think the Americans realize how good they have it with the digital ATIS system, because in Canada you can't get the ATIS.
Set.
The only way you can get the ATIS in Canada is by listening to liveatc.net. That's pretty much it. I don't think you know, a lot of the U.S. pilots and controllers realize how lucky they are that they can actually access the ATIS digitally online using apps or the FAA website or anything like that. You can get ATIS quickly and easily that way. You got to listen to it for Toronto. You got to listen to it on liveatc.net. If you listen to it at the wrong moment, you got to go through the whole thing again to listen to the whole thing to hear which approaches are active and all that. So, anyways, she's starting to slow down now. That's good. Let's put the speed brakes again. All right, so we'll go ahead and say we're clear for the approach. Arm the approach. We're still just hovering at +9 here. Temperature's getting warmer, but we're slowing down, which is keeping the TAT just at the +9 here. We're almost kill the engine anti-ice. Alright, so we got VOR low mode and glide slope. No, we shouldn't have VOR closed. What approach do we have programmed in here? I'm going to cancel that for a second. I did change the approach, right? Yeah, because it's got all these waypoints. We are on the RNAV approach, so... should be able to. There's FMC glide path, that's what I'm looking for. Let's get the speed back to 190 here. Flaps 5.
Speed checked.
Portland traffic, Alaska 683 is joining a 15-mile final runway 28 left.
Flaps 5 set.
Portland Tower, good morning. Alaska 683 with you on the RNAV X-ray, runway 28 left.
Alaska 683, Portland Tower, good morning. Continue approach.
Continue, Alaska 683. Alright. Let's just get this heading onto runway heading here, 283. There might be simultaneous approaches happening with my FSLTL traffic. Alright. We're below the cloud layer. There's one of the FSLTL airplanes there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and kill the anti-ice at this point.
2500.
Radio altimeter alive. Cabin crew, take your seats. 1011.
Roger, 3 for 2. Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Speed checked.
I the gear. Stupid honeycomb. Kind of just make out the
Flaps 15 set.
Speed 170.
Alaska 683, wind 3404, runway 28 left, clear to land.
28 left, clear to land. Alaska 683, thanks. Glide path. Glide path.
Checked.
Missed approach altitude 4000 set.
Final approach fix. Height checked. Missed approach altitude is set.
Flaps 30.
Speed checked. Flaps 30 set.
Landing checklist.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Flaps 30, green light.
Landing checklist completed.
Got this one little cloud hanging out here too. One little cloud. It's kind of murky down here, but I kind of see the runway there. Set this all up. Make this look good for the stream. I don't think I've landed on 28 left yet. Always end up landing on the 10s here.
1,000. Glide slope.
1,000 feet. Stable.
I don't know why it's giving
Glide
me
slope.
a glide slope warning here because I'm not even on the glide slope. We are right on the glide path, so we're going to stick with that. Cleared. Autopilot's off.
Check. $500 feet.
Checked.
400.
Approaching minimums.
Approaching minimums.
Minimums.
Continue.
Speed brake up. Reverses normal.
Manual braking.
60 knots.
Alaska 683, welcome Portland, right when able, SIG 8.
Alright, we're making a right turn now and gate Charlie 10, Alaska 683.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of our flight. Please remain seated with your seat.
Alaska 683, taxi to the ramp via Bravo 2, Bravo, Mike, cross 03, Mike to the ramp.
We'd like to thank you for flying with us today. We really
Bravo 2, Bravo, Mike, cross 03 to the ramp, Alaska 683. Thank you very much. Just verify my taxi route on here. Should have had this ready to go. One day we'll have a tablet that we can just look at over here. Alright, okay, so here we go. So we're on, we turned on Bravo 2, Bravo, bear left onto Mike, cross 03, and then I take it straight into the terminal. Perfect. Love it, love it. That was actually pretty nice, nice landing at the end of the day. I was pretty happy with that one. Pulled the thrust off a little bit late, kind of floated, but it was kind of nice also. I don't know if you guys saw that on final.
APU on the buses.
There were a couple of aircraft sitting there ready in queue to take off, which is just great. Like I miss seeing other airplanes. I love going to Friday night ops and other big VATSIM occasions where you see lots of other airplanes taxiing around. I'd love it more when they're real people. You know, AI traffic is great to a degree, and it's nice to kind of make it look a little bit busy. But I would rather have VATSIM traffic any day of the week. Real people, knowing that real people are out there doing the job, definitely makes it look a little bit more busy. And it's not taking a huge hit on the frame rate. Now in Las Vegas, we were getting 40. After a 2-hour flight, and with all this FSLTL traffic turned on, I'm a hair under 30 here. 27 is where it seems to be kind of pegged right now, and there goes the departure. It definitely makes the world feel a little bit more populated. I should probably use FSLTL more often, and now that I've stopped using SimToolkit Pro, I can use that processor power for other things. So this new overlay, it seems to work really well. This time it seems to have been rock solid all the way through the whole flight, still going, no issues. So this is Mike Taxiway. Now we're clear to cross runway 03. Clear left and right. Clear left.
Clear right.
Thank you. But yeah, it's nice to have some traffic out there, and I can use this processor power. Even getting rid of SimToolkit Pro makes me think maybe I could stream the Fenix. And I bet you guys would just love to see that. And you guys would just love to watch me fly the Fenix on stream, and I'm thinking about it now. Without SimToolkit Pro there, it definitely, I haven't had as many performance issues. I think SimToolkit Pro sadly was what was dragging my system down a lot before. It was grabbing a lot of information from the sim. It was kind of useful, but at the same time it was annoying. Alright, now, Charlie 10 hopefully doesn't have anybody parked at it. I see a whole bunch of Southwest tails
3 minutes
here, so hopefully there's nobody parked there. Just have a look, and if we need to, we can reselect for a different gate. So this side looks pretty full of airplanes right now. The nice thing about FSLTL is I can just kill it, just like that, if I don't like what's going on. And the other nice thing about GSX too is GSX will tell me if there's somebody actually in the parking spot, and it'll say, free this parking from AI. And I can delete that airplane without deleting all the rest of them. It just deletes one AI airplane, which is actually not bad, because it looks like all the spots are taken here, potentially. Unless it's down there somewhere. Anyways, let's have a look here. I might have to change it. It might be past that last Southwest airplane. So let's have a quick look here. Try not to hit the truck. Really? These airport vehicles annoy me sometimes. There's just too many of them. And airport vehicles are also great for adding immersion. But they've got to do a better job of giving way to aircraft instead of just driving across. Alright, this is Charlie 16. I think one of these Southwest airplanes is parked at Charlie 10 here. Charlie 14. Charlie 12. And this is Charlie 10, so this is where my marshaller is waiting for me. Free this parking spot from AI. There we go. Done. Didn't work the first time, but this time it worked. Goodbye, airplane. Oh, if only I could do that in real life. If only I could just be like, nope. Make my gate available. Lights and doors.
Check. Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check.
Oh, that would make my life so much easier if I could just delete the airplane that is already occupying my gate in real life. Just gone, just vanished. Didn't even move, he's just gone. Great. Beautiful. Maintenance on buses. Shut down. Please remember to submit your flight. Thank you. Not sure what's going on here while we're waiting for the bridge here. It says waiting for other services to complete. I noticed some stuff has appeared, so I'll just reset it. There it comes. Request deboarding. Shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps. Off. Probe heat. Off. Hydraulic panel. Set. Flaps.
0. Up.
Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off.
Off. Shutdown
Avoiding
checklist
requested.
completed.
Nice, and we have made it. Welcome to welcome to Portland. We're back, guys. As always, we never stop coming and going from Portland. It seems in this job when we work for Alaska Airlines. But that is it. We are done for today. let us just submit this flight for evaluation. And I should have almost enough points, experience points, to get myself an upgrade. So the next flight we're going to do, I believe, is DFW.
Passengers boarding.
Portland down to DFW. So that's a bit of a long one. I think that's going to be about a 3-hour voyage. It's not quite the San Francisco to JFK, but it's definitely going to be a longer one. So we'll have to find some time, set aside some time for that. Lots of time to talk about stuff, but the trouble is I'm going to have to find some stuff to talk about for that duration. And also you guys are going to have to find some friends to watch, because if we can get the numbers up, we will definitely be failing some stuff on that. In 3 hours, something should fail on that route, and maybe we won't make it to Dallas. Maybe we'll have to stop halfway in, like Denver, if something bad happens. I'm kind of looking forward to one day doing something like that, where something untoward happens, and we do get a we do have to make some kind of a diversion or something. So something to look forward to, anyways. I wouldn't mind diversion. I think it's
November 526 Alpha Delta.
almost there. 1870. I only need 130 more points, and I would be upgraded from junior first officer to finally first officer. It's not much of an upgrade, but I think that'll increase my salary as well. So my bank account will start going up in slightly larger amounts.
And King 6 Alpha Delta, thank you for help.
Otherwise, that's basically what we're up against here. So that's the next episode. We're going to do that. Let's just check and see how this went, because I think that was a pretty good flight. What did
JFK at 2000 feet.
What did I do here? 98. Again, I think it's the landing lights. It's just because I have a hardwired landing light, or that always thinks the beacon light on. I didn't have the beacon light on for taxi light, and landing light on was not on for takeoff. I think it was on for takeoff, but I think the detection does not work properly. Anyways, still, 98 experience points is not bad. I've had some pretty lousy flights. 98 score is not bad. I've had some lousy flights. I don't think anything out of the 90s, but anyways. But yeah, at some point I'm going to have to spend some of this money, some of this almost $4,000 I have. I'm kind of saving up, I think, right now for financial education. It just gives me a bonus income of 0.5% every single time I complete a flight. So it gives me a little bit more payroll. I just wish that, and that's what I did too. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but like I was working for, who was I working for? I was working for SkyWest, I think it was. And I switched from SkyWest to Alaska, and my salary went from like $16 an hour to $31, like it nearly doubled. So yeah, you have to be a little bit picky sometimes. The salaries are just kind of randomized. Like it just sort of offers you some random. There's a certain formula it has, but it's got like a plus or minus $10 range on that. So you can end up with quite a low or quite a high salary. Like I'm getting offered jobs here from $15 to $30 an hour. So yeah, like sometimes you have to be a little bit picky. Sometimes if you reapply the second time, because it's a randomly offered salary, it'll be better the second time than it was the first time. Or of course, it could be worse. So you don't necessarily know, but that's part of the joy is you know, playing the game a little bit. Like, you know, how badly do you want to work for this airline? Will you take a lower salary just to work for this particular airline, or will you do it for the money? Is the money what's really worth it? Like Thai Air Asia, $15. I'm probably not going to go work for Thai Air Asia. I don't even know what aircraft they fly. 320 fleet. It's like an all 320 fleet. Yeah. Yeah, there it is, 320 fleet. But places I do not have scenery for, so I'm not going to be flying Thai Air Asia. As opposed to $30 an hour for Airbridge Cargo. And I believe they fly some 737s in the cargo configuration. We could do that. Yeah, 734. So they have one 737 in the cargo configuration. They're mostly 74 and 777s, which we don't really have available in the sim. But look at these long legs, though. Holy moly, I don't know if I could do it. What's their base? UNKI and UEE. Yeah, so some long hauling. Not what you guys want to see on stream. You don't want to see me do this. Alaska's a nice one to work for. It's a little bit longer legs than I wanted, but I'm definitely thinking as well I'm going to probably apply to some of the other mainline American carriers at some point. I could even apply to like the Frontiers and fly the Airbus around if I could prove that the Airbus works. So one of these days, I may take that Fenix 320 out, and we may do it, fly it on stream, just because I feel like I've got enough performance now. This new overlay up here at the top is adequate to be able to fly with to be able to fly it on stream. I think. I don't know yet. I might have to try it a few times and see, but it's worth considering, anyways. But anyways, yeah. See, in Frontier, like a lot of shorter routes. Let's see, hubs too is the other thing too. Atlanta, Denver, Las Vegas, Orlando. Those are all airports that I have either bespoke airports, or I have the Denver as well, the Las Vegas. So these are all ones that would be decent hubs. Would be Las Vegas, Denver, Atlanta. So it would definitely be different. Definitely be some different aircraft. So Frontier is not a terrible airline to potentially work for. A lot of kind of mid-range flying. I'm trying to think what else. You know, and I'm thinking of the big American carriers like Southwest would probably be
King Air 6 Alpha Delta.
good airline to fly for. But again, there's a lot of longer legs as well. But there's a lot of room in Southwest.
To the north.
4-star airline, so it's not impossible for me to get in there. I think Alaska's a 4-star airline, and I'm in Alaska, so it's one of those things where I can just apply to it randomly and just see what happens. The only thing is that to fly for Southwest, I would need to have Dallas Love, because Dallas Love is such a big hub. You'd probably be going there a couple times. I would not be able to go there without work there without Dallas Love, so I would have to pick up that Dallas Love scenery, but I really would like to. I think Southwest would be a fun one as well. A lot of variety of airports, slightly different airports from the rest of the majors. They tend to go into a lot of secondary airports to keep things cheaper. So the Chicago Midway, the Dallas Love, the Houston Hobby, some of the I won't say lesser airports, but the secondary airports in a lot of these major cities. But there's a lot of operations here, a lot of flights to choose from. So I think Southwest could be a very fun airline to work for, just for the sheer variety of flights available. Fleet size 797, number of routes 13,554 different routes loaded for this aircraft, or for this airline. That's a lot of routes. Alaska doesn't have close to that many routes. Alaska's only got, let's see here, find Alaska. Because I'm curious how Alaska compares to that.
It got cleaned up. Some guy in his King Air yesterday. Oh, wait a minute. I think I know who that was.
So yeah, meant to work for Alaska. It's another 4-star carrier, so it's definitely possible. But it's a much smaller carrier than Southwest.
The crew tanks.
220 aircraft, 1,071 routes. What was that, 14,000? Like that would be a whole nother level. You'd never visit the same airport twice in a season if you work for Southwest. So something to think about. Maybe I'll apply for Southwest next. We'll continue flying the 737 because I'm enjoying the 737. It's a lot of fun. So anyways, I think that's enough for me for today, guys. Things to think about, some fun to have in the future. In the meantime, it's fine. Don't worry about it, GSX. In the meantime, we will leave you guys to the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a pity nothing failed. Hopefully in the future, more stuff will fail, and we'll eventually get some something interesting will happen when we're flying, I swear. Good morning, G Cook Scotland. Unfortunately, you're just catching me as I'm signing off, but hopefully I'll try later this week to have an ATC stream. I haven't done one for a while. I'm kind of jonesing to do one. I know you guys like watching them too. Hopefully we'll find a busy evening and we'll get some ATC going one of these nights. So in the meantime, guys, have yourselves a good rest of the day. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in, and we'll see you guys all real soon out there in the VATSIM skies. Take care. Have a great day.